This is the regular board meeting of May 6, 2021. It's now 4:37. Time of roll call, please, Mary.
President Lay,
Here.
Vice President Herrera,
Here.
Chavez. Here. Member Cortese. Here. Member Doe is on his way.
Thank you. So move it to 1.02. Welcome to the regular board meeting of May 6, 2021. Are there any member of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item at this time? No?
There is no written public comment. There's no written public comment.
Mute. Okay. Can you start it again? So,
Jackhammer, you may unmute now.
All right. Am I up for comment?
You're up, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I touch base with everybody before you meet. I sent a message or two today with some documents and things about where it's at. And you know, I'll be honest and I'll say that to this point, there hasn't been a whole lot of cooperation back and forth about trying to find a resolution. And, you know, I think at this point, I'm getting to the point where I'm going to just throw my hands up and say, let it be what it may. But I did provide proof, if you will, that transcripts and grades are not equally matching, which shows that grades have been changed because a grade needs to be reflected on a transcript. And, you know, we at ESTA are trying to do the right thing by everybody and work with you guys to come to a resolution, but it just doesn't seem that anybody is willing to entertain any of those ideas. But what I implore you to think about before you make a decision on anything, even if that means to try to attempt to work out a resolution, is the consequences that could possibly result as we move forward if there isn't some form of resolution worked out between both sides in this case. It has a great impact going forward versus the Rogelio and I had worked out what we thought was an amenable situation, and you know, as fair and reasonable as we could come up with. But I don't think anybody wanted to entertain that, and I think that's maybe not a good idea. But I also didn't hear any other counter proposals to that situation as well. So I would not want to be in your position going forward, and you know, you all need to work out what you need to work out, and then we'll go from there. So I appreciate you listening to my comments, and thank you.
thank you, Jack. I just want to read the, for anyone that would like to submit any public comments, please do it online by accessing the former district web homepage at www.esuhsd.org or the link on the agenda. Please remit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please note all regular and special meeting of the board trustee and board study session are streamed live on meeting night and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district YouTube channel listed on the district webpage at www.esuhsd.org under the quick link section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. The comment will be noted and will be directed to the superintendent and the appropriate staff member for response. So no more other public comments, right? All right. If not, then we will recess to the closed session. Thank you. We will come back at 6 p.m. for open session. Hello, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the regular board meeting of May 6, 2021. I apologize that we are in a closed session a little bit longer than our anticipation. So instead of starting at 6 p.m., we started a bit late and now it's like 6:21. All right, so let's moving to agenda item to 4.01. Member of the public, please submit your public comment online by accessing the form on the district homepage at www.esuhsd.org or the link on the agenda. Please limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please note, all meetings are recorded. All regular and special meetings of the Board of Trustees and board study session are streamlined on meeting nights and also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district YouTube channel listed on the district webpage at www.esuhsd.org under quick link section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Their comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda and the district website. Right, we move to adoption of the agenda. But first of all, I really want to say thank you, everyone, today that we meet first in person with every board member. You know, I'm glad that we'll be able to do that. And hopefully then when we move to yellow tier, and we probably open more for the publics. So thank you. 5.01, adoption of agenda. The superintendent and the board members may request that item to be removed from the agenda for consideration and or carry to a future board member for consideration and or action, and or that the board take action in a regular board meeting on a subject not listed on the published agenda on an emergency basis or other basis allowed by law. Gov Code 54954.2. If I don't see any requests, then we move to 6.01, staff building equitable communities. Mr. Superintendent Fung, please take it away.
And I will turn this over to Ms. Chris Marquez.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Today, we recognize the following staff as they strive to build equitable communities. First, we honor our school nurses, Safia Chen, Carla Betancourt, and Kira Cowley. And kudos for them read as follows. Eastside has been fortunate in that for several years, 3 exceptional registered school nurses have been with us to support our students and their families. We are grateful to Safia Chan, Carla Betancourt, and Kira Cowley for their service overall, and particularly during this very challenging year. Throughout the 2020-2021 school year, our nurses contributed to countless county and statewide nursing meetings and conferences. They have provided us with essential information to keep students, teachers, and staff as safe as possible throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, school nurses. Our next honoree is Brian Mr. B. Barrientos. He's a physics teacher, safety team member, 18.4 member, and former science department chair at W.C. Oberfeld High School. And kudos from his principal read as follows. Brian Barrientos is a teacher who inspires confidence in his students and their families. He can be counted on to make students work and hold them to the highest standard while still making learning fun. This is true regardless of the course or student. Throughout his career, he has been an innovator, but never has that been more evident than during the pandemic, where he embraced every day with the spirit of ingenuity. His ability to create community has extended beyond his students throughout the Oberfeld family. He has been an influential leader who has played a large role in making Oberfeld a successful school. It is hard to imagine Oberfeld High School without Mr. B. Our next honoree is math teacher from Mount Pleasant High School, Miss Catherine Dury. And kudos from the principal read as follows. I am pleased to recognize Catherine During for her work in building equitable communities at Mount Pleasant. Catherine incorporates various technologies in her distance learning lessons and calls on students to increase student engagement. She genuinely cares about her students and their social emotional learning, as well as their academics. Catherine is a member of our MTSS team and continues to work to make a difference in the lives of her students. Thank you for all that you do. Next, we recognize attendance clerk at Independence High School, Ms. Tao Pham. And kudos from her principal read as follows. Ms. Pham is part of an outstanding and dedicated attendance team at Independence. Tao is often one of the first points of contact for parents visiting our campus and always seeks to answer their questions fully and make sure they are prepared. She is a pleasure to work with. Tao is extremely kind and efficient. She is a true sixer. Our next honoree is Miguel Esparza, Chief. He's a support services tech and the varsity baseball coach at WC Overfelt High School. And kudos for him read as follows. Miguel Esparza, known to all as Chief, is Overfelt's biggest supporter and will do whatever it takes to help Royals find success. He coaches baseball and assists with football and basketball, but is here for all of it. You can hear him cheering, playing music, and motivating students at almost any event on campus. Students can count on Chief to be there with positive energy, life advice, and whatever else they need. In his role as support services tech, he brings the same passion to making sure students have the technology they need and that school-wide testing is organized and effective. Chief is a graduate of the class of 2001 and our proudest Royal. We all believe the C in William C. Overfelt stands for Chief. And finally, we honor Linda Renelas, Director of Marketing here at the Education Center. And kudos from the superintendent read as follows. Linda has been a major driver in helping our district rebrand itself over the years. The work that she produces, which highlights our schools in the best possible light, is magnificent. Linda works tirelessly to promote our district and our community in a way that places our schools in the highest standing. We are becoming schools of destinations. Congratulations to all our honorees.
Congratulations to all worthy. Yeah. Well, first time we can claps and can hear the claps, right? Before we always did to our Zoom. And I really want to say that first time I recognized that district nurses, Mrs. Chan, Bentacourt, Kali, as well as the teacher, Banyantes, during attendant clerk farm and support service tech, Esparza, and Director Marketing, Miss Renelas. I'm really appreciate all of this hard work for all of this staff and teachers, and everyone will make a difference for our to support our students. And I'm glad to see that the nurses, very important to work with our social worker and always support our mental health issue, and to really make sure our student will get the right support during the pandemic. And even though when we go back in the person as fall, and we need to continue and need some help from our nurses, because I know every time that I visit those site and really say, our nurse is very great, because we rely on all of those nurses as well as our teacher and staff. So kudos to all of those awardees, and thank you for your hard work. I'm open up for all my colleagues. Anyone has any comments? Okay, now I can see. All right, so anyone? Okay, go ahead.
I'll say something. So again, want to reiterate, kudos to our 3 district nurses, Sophia, Carla, Kara, Mr. B, Ms. Catherine Durig, Ms. Tao Pham, Chief, and Ms. Renelas. I've had the opportunity to get to know some of these folks, but for those that I can see how they're such an integral part of our Eastside community in our schools. And I just want to give a heartfelt congratulations once again for all the great work and really supporting our district, becoming who it is, becoming the strongest and continuing to strive toward equitable communities. So thank you again.
All right, board member Doe or Patty? No? No? Okay. All right. Okay. So I also want to say that I want to thank you, Linda Ornelas. Excuse me. I'm learned quite a few things with Linda from technology, from Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So Linda is really very helpful. And I know that she's been a good support, for marketing to reach out to other districts, so we can bring back, new idea for marketing. All right, so now we move to 7.01, which is Bruce Nguyen, Student Governing Board Representative. Bruce, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I am the student board representative for this year. I am also the chairperson of the student governing board, where 4 people from each school site are elected to serve on a board run by students. So I would like to begin my report. So this is a recap of the last student governing board meeting, where everyone talked about hosting elections on their campuses. We are urging all activities directors and principals to ensure that all elections are inclusive and transparent as possible. We wanted to also ensure that elections follow guidelines that fit the behavioral guidelines of the district as well. In terms of the bylaws, the student governing board also follows bylaws similar to the actual district governing board. We are creating a bylaw committee at the moment to ensure that recommendations are approved and passed. So once we have that ready in June, the district will also receive the updated bylaws to be approved as well. And there was a question we asked in the student governing board and why they were there. And some of the words that we received was that student governing board was optimistic, engaged, collaborative, committed, informative, diverse, evolving, open-minded, and inclusive. These are all of the things that will be continued into next year and every year so forth. Next slide, please.
All right, it froze on me for a second. There we go.
And this is a recap of what we discussed about sex education in Title IX currently. The district should look into how biology teachers feel about discussing consent, the concept of consent, and other social issues intersecting with sex education. As you already know, it's a really sensitive topic, and it would be highly encouraged that students understand what consent is before anything can continue within a biology class. And not every school is teaching sex ed on a greater basis as well. We only heard of some schools having 1 week, some schools having 2 weeks. This is something that should be emphasized as a district. The district also needs to figure out how language should be used to ensure that there is comfort among both students and teachers. And then on the right is just a recap again. We believe as an SGP, revisions are currently the revisions to Title IX are a huge barrier to survivors, especially in holding the assaulter accountable. And there are campaigns on social media right now. We're looking into that on how to respond to revising Title IX policies as a student body. People are not educated about boundaries, and this ties along with consent and how many people don't even know about if they were sexually assaulted. And then continuing on, change also needs to start with sex education to make it more inclusive and to hone in on values of consent. Next slide, please. So here are some of the recommended adaptations for the 2021 and 2022 school year. This is compiled from the entire year we've served as an SGB. One, in terms of closing the digital divide, we the student body have been in distance learning for over the course of an entire year, and we would definitely entertain the thought of having free internet access on a greater basis. This is currently what the district is doing. However, more students should be informed and through advertising that could be attained. Virtual tutoring is also really effective. I've seen many students benefit from going to Wednesday tutorial sessions and also sessions held by their teachers, and it is really effective. So it should remain to students that need it, either by the Assets program or some other third party. And then in terms of curriculum, we have reiterated that adopting and engaging sex ed curriculum that focuses on consent would be really beneficial for the student body. And then lastly, with community engagement, students should be encouraged to join committees such as MTSS in order to learn the policies that the schools are adapting on each campus. We also want to provide more outlets to student/district communication via town halls. One of the most successful town halls we've hosted as an SGB was the mental health town hall. And that's where it resulted in the district considering more wellness centers, specifically the one that's being considered in Oak Grove. And this is just a continuation of our action items. We wanted to continue to contact the associated superintendent of educational services and various subject area coordinators relating to sex education. We also wanted to continue talks with a nonprofit organization called the YWCA on providing outside sex ed resources concurrently, as the district is also looking into creating their own revised sex ed resources, and also to discuss the current resolution on student conduct. We've recently heard of reports at different campuses where student associated leadership groups have been involved in racially discriminatory actions, and we are looking into that as well. So as an SGB, we're going to implement our own code of conduct and also hold student leaders accountable as they should be. With that said, that concludes my report. Thank you, everyone.
Well, excellent, Bruce. If every board meeting, you really open us a different topic, and all of those issues really affected our student. So I really commend for all of the student board representative in our district. I really like when you put in for SGB meeting on May 6th is to member were asked to describe student governing board as optimistic, engaged, collaborative, committed, informative, diverse, evolving, open-minded, and inclusive. Excellent choice for all of those character and what we can learn from our student governing board. My question for you here is, I know this is education program, sex ed, Title IX. I was wondering that when you talk about curriculum, adopt and engage in sex ed curriculum that focus on consent, I think it's a very good idea, but I want to open up a little bit more on to be sensitive on a different culture. As an Asian culture, you know, and family background has tend to be not open as much as other culture, or someone that was not born in this country or came to United States as an immigrant. So they tend to be more withdraw when we talk about this curriculum. So I hope that we want to understand a little bit more of culture before we're gonna launch this, because we don't want anyone and a student to be intimidated, right? And we want them to open up, because this is very important for sexual assault. A lot of situation the student might not be aware of, but when they learn and understand and be open mind and open up, and they can really report on of those problems, domestic violence or anything wrong happen to their family. So I think this is very good, you know, action item from your SGB. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Patty.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, Bruce. I just wanted to take a moment to commend the Student Governing Board for taking on the code of conduct issue and, you know, doing that self-reflective work. I think that is really modeling excellent leadership. Thank you.
Oh, if I may add. Some of the solutions I might believe would work effectively in making sure that all cultures understand the nature of sexual assault would be to host stakeholder meetings, parent meetings as well, and educating the content that should be taught in classrooms. And students should also be involved in that as well. They should learn the tools in order to engage with their own parents about this. And hopefully, as time continues, more and more people start to have an understanding of that.
Any other board comments? Yes, go ahead, Board Member Doe.
Echoing my my colleague's comment, Trustee Cortese, kudos to the Student Leadership Board, and I do appreciate. I want to acknowledge my the board president's comment that we want to make sure this is culturally sensitive, because I think that there are cultural issues surrounding different groups that we have here at the district.
Thank you. All right. If I don't see any board comments, so let's move to 8.01. The superintendent and the board members may request that item be considered, discussed, and acted on out of the order indicated on the agenda as per schedule. So if I don't see anything, so let's move to 8.02. Presentation and a discussion regarding single plan for student achievement, SPSA, Mr. Kai Glettner, Principal, Dr. Vivian Ronley, Principal, and Jeannie Davis, Principal, and Teresa Marcus, Associate Superintendent of Educational Services. Please take it away.
Thank you, Madam President. Today we continue with our presentations, and it's my pleasure to have three of our principals who will present their single plan for student achievement, and we will begin with the principal from Evergreen Valley High School, Mr. Kyle Klettner.
Mr. Klettner, you may take your mask off to speak if you like, if you're comfortable.
Thank you. This is first time I've had my mask off in, gosh, since we've had masks on. Thank you for having me here tonight. It's fantastic to be here with you in person. And I'm very happy to share with you Evergreen Valley's single plan for student achievement. Of course, at Evergreen Valley, we are hyper-focused on building equitable communities. What that means for us is welcoming each and every student as they are, supporting their strengths and areas of growth, making sure they're strategic thinkers and that we're setting them up for college and career, and really making sure that the adults on our campus are positively responding to every single student need, whether it's academic, social, emotional, wellness, making sure that we're responding in a positive way. But also at Evergreen Valley, equitable communities and seeking that means that we stand shoulder to shoulder with our students. And that we work to empower them, that we work to uplift them. And then when we harness our students' energy towards change and towards positive change, we can do absolutely amazing things. And so I'm really a firm believer in empowering student voice. And so in talking about the single plan for student achievement, I really want to highlight our school site council. Privileged to have some members of the student governing board on our school site council as well. And so usually with the SIPSA, we definitely go with our department chairs and with our teachers and seek feedback and get ideas to include in the single plan for student achievement. But we also make sure that we do that with our school site council as well, and specifically with the students of our school site council. All three of the officers on site council are students, and they went through the single plan of student achievement. And if you have read one, it's quite long. Usually around 100 pages, and they went through and came up with some fantastic ideas, and we had some fantastic dialogue to make sure that their voices are represented in this plan and that we work together for positive change at Evergreen Valley. And so that's them, a fantastic group this year.
How did you get the signature underneath their picture on Zoom?
Where at? If you scroll up?
Where you under each person's picture, they have their signature?
You know what? That I believe is our school site council created that. So I don't
wow.
think that's our actual signatures. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I know, right? So the story about Evergreen Valley, is our increase in enrollment over the past decade or so. This year, we're around 2,940 students, and we've been climbing by around 30 or 40 students annually each year. You want to go to the next slide? In terms of our enrollment by ethnicity, another thing that we need to be mindful of is the changing demographics of Evergreen Valley. Evergreen Valley over the past decade has become, we've had more students who identify as Asian, of Asian descent, and we've had our Latinx population decline over the years. And so when we think about making sure that students feel welcomed as they are, we need to be cognizant that the school and the community around us is changing, and really make sure that we're working to reach out to every single student so that they know that they belong at Evergreen Valley and can be successful here. In terms of our subgroups, you can see that Evergreen Valley, 77% of our student body primarily is of Asian descent. Latinx is the next largest group with around 14%. But really the story about Evergreen Valley that we talked about before is that you have to sort of peel back the layers and look at our individual student groups and really disaggregate it. And so Evergreen Valley is a very large school, but we have many, many students that we need to focus on that we know have some extra needs. About 159 English language learners, 140 students in our special education program, and around 510 students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And so one of the things I'm just constantly hammering is, we know Evergreen Valley's reputation in the community, but that does not mean that we don't have students who are living in poverty on our campus or students that need extra support. And when we craft the SIPSA with our school site council, it's really that lens that we look through that kind of really develops how the plan comes together. And so you can see our vision and mission statement up there: curious, evaluative, daring, resilient, effective critical thinkers. But if you really want to know what's it mean to be a cougar at Evergreen Valley, you want to go to the next slide. It means that you roar. And so this is something that is consistent across our campus. If you ask students, you'll usually get them knowing 3 of the 4 letters of what that means. Realize our potential, own our actions, act with integrity, respect our community. Really touches on everything that we try to do as a campus. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. So our WASC goals, we got 5 of them. The first one is really development of standards-based grading within departments and PLCs. The idea that an A in one class is going to be based on the same standards as an A in another class, the same with a C in one class to a C to another class as well, accurately reflecting student performance that's aligned to the standards. Our second goal is continuing to implement restorative practices to address the disproportionalities in suspensions and referral, with a special focus on equity and inclusion. The third, increasing opportunities for students to have a voice in school government at Evergreen Valley, and really building systems that create a sense of belonging and equitable relationships on our campus. The fourth is professional learning communities with a focus on developing common formative assessments to help track student progress through the curriculum and intervene when we see that they are struggling. And then the fifth and final one was from a few years ago, this is 18-19, was expanding the academic counseling staff. And so this was when Evergreen Valley had 4 academic counselors. We're very happy to now have 7 academic counselors because of the work of our district and the board. So in terms of our goals, not trying to spam you with a lot of text on there, but this is kind of part of the story, right? That we don't just look at the top line number, we really need to drill down and look at individual student groups. And so the first goal aligned to college and career readiness. If you take a look at what we highlighted, I will say there are many, many more if you read the SIPSA, but these are a few that we pulled out. Increasing our Latinx A through G completion rate to 45% this year. And you can see the corresponding number for 5 years from now. The same for our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and then the overall school rate as well. So overall, the SIPSA is really an attack on disproportionalities and on the opportunity gap. And so if you go slide by slide, that's really what we try to hone in on. And in terms of this first one, yeah, you're good. In terms of achieving this, really focusing on social emotional learning strategies, those 2 WASC goals we mentioned above, but also relationship building, because the more we connect students to campus, to a trusted adult, to their friends, to a club, we know that academic achievement improves. So our second goal centers around graduation rate. And, a lot of times folks in the community look at the graduation rate and they think that tells the whole story, but it does not. Unfortunately at Evergreen Valley, the disproportionalities and inequities have existed and we need to address them. And so if you take a look at our graduation goals, we have set some realistic, but we think, or some ambitious, but we think realistic goals for improving graduation rate for several of our student subgroups. Latinx students, students with disabilities, socioeconomically disadvantaged students as well. And one of the things that's not mentioned up there is really our late enrollees. Like many schools in the district, our student achievement and metrics really decrease for students that are not with us from the first day of school until the very last day of school. And so to combat that, our staff and really our ASB and student leadership has developed Roar and Friends. And Roar and Friends is really designed to be a welcome committee and a buddy and mentor system to pair someone who enrolls in the school in October with an older student like a junior or senior, someone who they know that they can connect with, go to for advice, get shown around the school, but also do the same thing with one of their teachers as well. So that teacher can be a point person to them to improve that connection. Because again, if we can get that connection up and get that student connected to campus and enjoying being on campus, we know that academic achievement will follow. Same thing with our English language learners. You know, we want to have more of our students be reclassified as English proficient. That is one of our goals. But you also see one of our goals is increasing the percentage of English learners enrolled in AP courses. And so you'll see this in a couple of other areas of the SIPSA, but really trying to diversify and make our AP program more representative of the student body. We give over 3,000 advanced placement tests a year. And we know that it's not really a proportional representation of who takes those AP exams, but I firmly believe that every student can learn and every student is going to be capable if we support them and if we shoulder tap them and if we encourage them to be successful in those courses. And so with our English learners, you know, that means one-on-one meetings with our counselors and EL mentor on a regular basis. It means adjusting our instruction, not just in our sheltered classes or our ELD classes, but across the board in all of our courses as well. Decreasing suspension is another one of the big focuses in the LCAP, and of course for us as well. And again, we are focused on attacking those inequities that continue to exist, primarily with our Latinx student population, with our students with disabilities, and with our African American students as well. And so the goal is to pivot to more restorative practices and really try to minimize the loss of instructional time for students because, you know, frankly, we know that suspensions are necessary sometimes for student safety, but we also know that they're not effective at changing student behavior. And so using the other tools we have in our toolbox to address sort of student behavior and also working with our staff to positively respond to student behavior, acknowledging that they are children with brains that are still cooking and not done for many more years. That's really important in addressing you know, the disproportionalities that we know exist. And part of this as well is making sure that our representative bodies for students represents the whole campus and that we're making sure that students know that they have a voice and again, that they are welcome and that they belong. And then the fifth one really around chronic absenteeism. You know, we really want to increase the number of students who are on campus every day. That's how we connect them to school. Part of this, I believe, is amplifying and diversifying student voice on campus, but also really highlighting campus events and student events that we know touch on attendance, right? You know, sexual assault awareness and prevention is one that we have highlighted. We know that that type of concern can cause a barrier to attendance. LGBTQ student support, we know is huge for our students who are LGBTQ or questioning and making sure they know that they belong and are loved at our school. Time management, anti-drug awareness, partnering with our students to put all of this on for our campus to really help improve that attendance. And again, Cougar Connections, similar to Roar and Friends, is a way to just get our hooks into those freshman students and let them know that there's support there for them and that we have over 100 different clubs on campus and there is absolutely a space for them at Evergreen Valley. And what I'm super excited for is our new Student Support Center. We've been working with Mr. Lucas, like many schools, on our new student union. Evergreen Valley has mental health needs, and we're just so happy to have our first Student Support Center ever going to be completed here in around a year and a half. We're breaking ground hopefully in around 3 or 4 weeks or so, and we're definitely looking forward to that. And with that, that's the end of the line for me, in case anyone has any questions.
Wow, that's a lot of words. I really commend Principal Kai that really take, with your leadership, you bring it Evergreen to different phases. I have a question in terms of when you mentioned about a robust ISD process to regularly review data, to intervene early, and provide additional support to students. What type of additional support that you will, support our student, and how do you intervene earlier?
Yeah, great question. So our staff will regularly review the early morning system that has data around marking period grades, around attendance, around behavior. And it's really helpful in flagging students who we know may be slipping. And so an IST meeting essentially is calling a meeting of all the stakeholders for that student, the parent, the student, a teacher, an administrator, a school psychologist and counselor as well, and having a conversation about what's going on. And so those additional supports for students may be saying, well, this student just needs a planner to get organized, right? Or this student may need to work on time management. Or a lot of times it involves the instruction in the classroom. Maybe the student needs some extra time on some assignments. Or it's also a way for us to investigate for possible learning disabilities, whether there's a 504 or a special education need potentially as well. But really it's a way just to get a room full of caring adults and that student to talk about what's going on and how we can improve it.
Absolutely, okay. And I know that your the population of Evergreen is increasing, as well as the enrollment also increased in the last 10 years. How are you going to accommodate this classroom and make sure that our students have enough space, because it's overcrowded? And I know that you're probably aware of a lot of everyone that live around there only like to go to Evergreen. So that's my question. And the next question I want to ask is, how many AP courses that a student can take during one semester? Because remember when I went visit Evergreen in the last few years, and some parents also really complain that that the student and their child really have to push so hard because they have to take, I don't know, 5 or 6 AP classes. So that's just my 2 concerns that I want you to address.
You didn't plant the first question on the enrollment size and the facilities.
Yes, we were talking before the meeting. Yeah, frankly, enrollment's a concern. The increasing enrollment, we welcome all students as they are. We welcome all students as they are. However, when the school was not built with the infrastructure to support a population of almost 3,000, you see impacts to lunch lines. You see impacts to the restroom lines. School is quite crowded, and it does have a negative impact on the student achievement or the student experience rather, at Evergreen Valley. In terms of what we've done to cope, we have taken over every department office on campus that used to be used for departments to hold meetings or to store supplies. Every one of those offices is now gone and has been converted into a classroom with district facilities help. It doesn't address the infrastructure needs right away. Our student union will help. We're adding some student restrooms through that. And we've also extended our passing period and our lunch as well for next school year to help students get from class to class. But to be frank, that's kind of a Band-Aid. Just with that many students, it's really difficult to address it in a way with the resources we have on our campus. And as far as the AP courses, I believe we have around 24 or so AP courses that we offer, but gosh, well over 100 sections of AP courses. A few years ago, there was a practice at our school of attempting to cap the number of courses, AP courses that students take. We removed that, mostly because it was not equitably applied. There are some students who are fully capable of taking 4 or 5 AP courses in a semester, and that's going to be easy for them. And then there are other students who maybe 1 or 2 is really what they need. And so really it's an individual conversation with the student and their counselor. And then ultimately the number of space and the number of seats we have in class, because we don't want to have a small number of students taking 5 courses and then other students who just want to take 1 not be able to get into that course. But I will say, we're super proud of our students who are in AP courses and take those courses. I do think challenging rigorous curriculum is super, super helpful, and encouraging more students to take those courses. When you set that bar higher, students will reach it, right? So if we can get more students who traditionally have not taken those AP courses into them, that will lead to greater success for them.
Thank you, Kai. Let me open to my board colleagues, Patty Cotisi.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want you to know, I'm sure you do already, that you are well represented on the student governing board. You've got some tremendous leaders in your school. I am, I lit up when I heard about your Roaring Friends program. Is that something, how old is that? How long
Oh,
have you been
gosh,
doing
it's
that?
hard with COVID time, but I believe it was around a couple years before the pandemic hit. So we're in year 4 or 5 around now, but we're trying to, before it's been for like freshmen, but we're trying to expand it as well to include late enrollees. We had that up and running right before the pandemic hit.
And how is it going?
I think it's going pretty well. I think it's a little too soon to look at the data, but just anecdotally seeing the student who before would be wandering around completely confused, seeing them with an upper class student, showing them around, anecdotally, it seems to be working well, to having students feel more acclimated. And I've even had parents sort of mention to me the names of their students' buddies. So I do think we're getting some saturation with that.
That is awesome. And could I ask Associate Superintendent Marquez, do you know if that program is happening? I don't want to put you on the spot. It is perfectly okay if you don't know, but I'm wondering if any of other sites are doing something like that.
I know that other sites have the linked crew, which is something similar where they do buddy up an upperclassman with a freshman as part of their orientation. I don't know exactly which sites, but I know that that's something that many of our sites have implemented.
Well, and particularly what I heard you say, Mr. Kleckner, was that this is a program that's not only for freshmen, but also for students who are new, who are transferring in, or because we've noticed that students who have a lot of mobility are the ones that seem to struggle the most. And if we can, allow other students to be a support, I think that gives them access to something that adults can have, but students can have it in a much more impactful way. So I think that's great. And as soon as we have some data on that, I'd love to hear more about it.
Thank you, Board Member Cortese. Let's Board Member Chavez first, ladies first.
I was thinking exactly what you were thinking, Patty, and some. First of all, thank you so much, Kyle. Very, very thorough presentation. I think one of the things that really stood out to me is the through line of student voice in everything that happens and all the components of EV, which I think is really powerful. I think it's really important. We're here to support our students. We're here to make sure that they have the best education possible and that we support them in every way to become that whole child, right? And by having their voice at the table every step of the way as much as possible, that's key. And I can tell that that's front and center for you. So thank you. Thank you for that. I also want to note that I appreciate the sub goals that you have. Just having these goals is hard. Been out of school. I work in education, so there's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of intentionality and work to note the sub goals and be committed to them for the right reason. So thank you for that. And the question I have is, it's kind of twofold. We just hopefully we'll be getting out of this pandemic soon, but we went through a full year of being in distance learning, right? As you think about this full year and your goals, what would you say has been the biggest learning that you've had this year, and how that translates into some of the goals that you have for this upcoming year or two? And with that, what excites you the most, right? This is my biggest lever. This is what excites me to move my school community as a community forward.
That's a good question. I think the biggest challenge and the biggest area of growth we've had during the pandemic has been connection. And I know I've said that a bunch of times, but it was literally just a huge challenge when suddenly you don't have students on campus anymore and you have to connect with them virtually. And so the ways that we have overcome that is trying to convert all of the school cultural events and all the amazing things that our students put on, convert that to virtual offerings. And so our students have done tremendous work with converting Battle of the Classes and converting other student seminars and meetings to that virtual place. It was always kind of frustrating, though, to be a little frank, because it's never quite the same as in person. So we were working as hard as we could to improve that student connection, but then you hit this ceiling where One of the most frustrating things is when you see a student who was on board and successful, for example, their freshman year on campus, and then they fall off sort of their sophomore year in distance learning. And how do we reach out to that student through the computer screen, right? So that's one of the things that was sort of challenging to work through. What excites me? Oh my goodness, it doesn't take much. Just having a few students come onto campus and go to their cohorts even on our short day when we only have 2 cohorts, talking with them, having a conversation, like that was amazing. So I really look forward to the big student events again, the battle of the classes, having student speakers at the quad, that student advocacy where they can fight to be change makers on their own and being able to uplift and empower their voices. Like I just get really excited. It's the thing I love the most about Evergreen is just how active and engaged the students are. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
And that's why you're the right person to be there, because that excitement, that's what our children need to see day in and day out. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Board Member Doe.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kleckner. I hope I did not mispronounce your name too far.
You're fine.
But I love your enthusiasm. I love the excitement. And I just want to say kudos to you, to the students, to the staff, and all the teachers and all the staff at Evergreen Valley High School for your being recognized as a California Distinguished School. And I love the detail as well as the big picture view that you provide your presentations. So thank you for that. And I look forward to visiting your school, Evergreen Valley School, next week. I think on Wednesday, I believe. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. No other board comments? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. All right. Ms. Ginny Davis from Piedmont Hill, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jenny Davis. I'm the principal of Piedmont Hills. So of course, just like my fellow schools at Piedmont, we are committed to building the capacity amongst all of our staff to ensure that equity and inclusion are the central principles of our school system. As a matter of fact, we've actually adopted a very similar version of this as our common assurances as a site. So here you see our enrollment trends over the past 7 years. The enrollment at Piedmont Hills has slightly declined over the past 7 years, but if you look at this, you can see that our ethnic breakdown has remained pretty steady. Our largest group, which is the purple on this chart, is our Asian population, and then our Hispanic population is the light blue, and then the third largest group we have is Filipino. So on here, when you look at the program breakdowns for Piedmont Hills, and so this gives the more detailed of the enrollment. So you can see in the past 7 years, our enrollment has dropped from 2215 to this year, 2005 students. Within these years, though, you see that our population of our English learners, in some years it's gone as high as 8.2%. That was in year 15-16, and then as low as 6.48%. Our students with disabilities, there's also been some fluctuation there at a high point of 9.4% in 16-17 and a low of 7.94 in 19-20. Our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, we've fluctuated from about 32% down to 26%, which is this year. I want to point out this number though, because Piedmont Hills, like my friends at Evergreen and Santa Teresa, who's also presenting tonight, we are not a Title I school, but I think it is significant that over 25% of our population is on free and reduced lunch. So here are our current school site information. This data on here matches what the previous slides have shown you. On this orange chart here, I know it's hard to see, it's a little small, but of our EL students, 75% of the EL students we have at Piedmont Hill are long-term, and 50% of our population are redesignated fluent English proficient. So that means at one point they were English learners. Okay, our mission at Piedmont Hills is to create a school community that provides all students with a strong educational foundation that prepares them to thrive in a global society while also developing the skills needed to achieve their potential. And of course, at Piedmont Hills, we do this through the Pirate Way. And I have a copy of our poster on there that you will see all over our campus. But Pirate Way is we are problem solvers, independent thinkers, responsible individuals, adaptable learners, technologically literate, and effective communicators. So last year in early March, actually a week before everything shut down in March, we finished our WASC visit. All of these recommendations, and I'm not going to read you this slide because you will see all of these recommendations as the long-term goals in our SIPSA slides that you're about to see. Because what we did, and actually it was really nice when the WASC visit came, they gave as recommendations the recommendations we gave for ourselves in our WASC report, where they agreed 100% with what we said we needed to do in the next 6 years. So our first goal is to build a school environment and culture where students practice self-efficacy and where Tier 1 interventions are being put to use in every classroom so as to assure the success of our students, but especially our students from our underserved subgroup populations. So that is our long-term goal. And within this, for next year, we really want to focus our professional development efforts on the transition back to in-person learning to ensure the success of our students. And then with this, we're really focusing on preparing the teachers to come back to in-person learning and how do they adapt their classroom expectations from what they have this year. This has been a very different year, and we've gone over a year of instruction where obviously it's been digital, and that's very different from a person-to-person in classroom situation. So key strategies with this, we want to blend our Pirate Way, which I just talked to you about, to classroom behavior expectations. Like, what does this mean to be a pirate with behavior in classroom? One thing that we're really concerned about as a school is cell phones. All of our students and our teachers have spent over a year being able to look at their phone whenever they want. And so we know that when we come back to in-person learning, that this is actually going to be an adjustment for our students and for our teachers, and how do we deal with that? We also, to help do this, we're going to design SEL lessons and activities that will ease the transition back to in-person learning in the fall. So we have a committee that's working this summer to help train the teachers on school-wide lessons and social emotional learning activities that we're going to really heavily emphasize in the first couple of weeks of school to help with this transition. Our goal 2, the long-term goal is to embrace a school model that supports student success and enhances their social and emotional growth, health, and well-being, while also increasing our students' familiarity with the resources on campus, offered on campus to promote academic success and social and emotional well-being. So whereas our first goal was really focused on the teachers, this goal is really focused on the students, and the same idea that we're going to focus site-level student support services in order to ease the transition back to in-person learning to ensure the success of all students. We're just very aware that we can't just go back to in-person in the fall and expect that everything's going to go back to normal. There is going to be a transition that we have to work really hard to make sure this goes as smooth as possible. So some of the key strategies that we're going to do to ensure that this happens. Every summer, like all schools, we have a freshman orientation program this summer. We are actually going to expand that to include our sophomores next year, who are our current freshmen, who have spent very little time on our campus. And so really like making sure that they understand what our campus is like and where everything is and what we offer. And again, designing the SEL lessons and activities that will help the transition back to in-person learning. It's going to help the teachers and the students. So our next long-term goal, with this, it includes English learners, but also with this long-term goal, we've really incorporated our students with disabilities. So what we want to do is we want to expand our current student support systems to include new ways to encourage more students from our subgroup populations, including our English learners, to enroll in accelerated and advanced placement courses, and also increase the representation of our special education students in the general education classrooms across the curriculum, while also implementing new systems to help ensure continued student engagement, responsible behaviors, and academic success. And so this next year, we really want to focus on increasing the level of support offered to our special education students and our English learners, including the use of co-taught classes and push-in support. The key strategies we're going to use to do this will be a real emphasis on tier 1 intervention strategies to support our struggling students and really take advantage of new positions that's going to be offered in the district of teachers on special assignment to help support these students and really help them self-advocate and ask so that they feel comfortable asking for the needed help and support that they need from their teachers. So our next long-term goal is to explore ways to increase the participation of students and parents in co-curricular activities and to expand the inclusiveness of our school clubs as to promote our students' mental health and self-efficacy. We believe really strongly that students who are connected to their campus are less likely to be suspended. And so again, this is really for next year, focusing on that transition back to in-person learning, and so that we build a positive and welcoming campus culture so that students really want to be there. And some of the strategies in this area I'm actually really excited about. We want to emphasize project-based classroom activities, cross-curricular classroom activities like our cultural fair, which I know Board President Van Lay came to a couple of years ago. Hopefully we will do this again and all of you can come see it. We want to continue our parent outreach so that parents feel the same connection to our school as the students. And this is the part that I'm really, really excited about. You know, every year we usually have like a club rush type thing at lunch where kids can see all the clubs. We want to turn that into a day-long activities and athletic fairs that we will do right at the start of school for all of our 9th and our 10th grade students to become familiar with the clubs, sports, and activities offered on campus so that they know what we have, and so ways that they can connect to the campus. So, and this final goal, you know, this is an interesting one where we've kind of really blended with the district goal of reducing chronic absenteeism with our WAS goal of using assessments to improve the effectiveness of instruction. So bear with me on how I'm blending a bunch of different ideas with this goal. But we believe our long-term goal is the school should continue to work with the district to develop a cycle of inquiry, which uses formative benchmark and common assessments that inform the development of quality instruction school-wide. If students are engaged in learning and receiving quality instruction, they will be more likely to attend school, thus meeting the LEA's goal of reducing absenteeism. So our annual goal with this focuses on equitable grading practices, where we are going to have our professional development committee. That's what PDC stands for, to train the staff on the ideas discussed in the book by Joe Feldman, Grading for Equity. We have a team that's already read this book, and then we're set to train the rest of our staff. We are hoping to end the next school year. So when I'm standing up here next year, I can tell you all about it, that with common assurances for equitable grading practices. Our key strategies in this area, I've got some key strategies that will address the students that do have attendance issues. To be completely honest, at Piedmont Hills, we have one of the highest attendance rates in the district. We're actually usually competing with my friend at Evergreen for the highest attendance rate in the district. So we don't have a tremendous amount of students that have chronic absenteeism issues, but the ones that do usually have so you see our second strategy there, use our advisors and social workers in the IST process to address the mental health concerns that may be affecting attendance, because we do find that the students that have attendance issues, there's usually some mental health reasons behind that. And then also the other strategy in this area is to continue to offer twice yearly reviews of data, all of our data, with our stakeholders, including our school site council, our parent boosters, the weekly parent meetings that I have with my parents, our departments, and other stakeholders, including student groups. Finally, these pictures that I've included, these are all pictures from our cohorts that we've got going on. So it's really exciting to see students back on campus.
Yes, exciting to see those pictures of the student that coming back, and even though with the masks from music class to outside or athletic, during the school. I have a question for you is for the school site information. You mentioned in 2019-20 socioeconomically disadvantaged 553 student is like percentage like 27% of the percent of the student in the whole school. Do you see the trend of more socioeconomically disadvantaged during the 2020-2021? I know that we're not finished it yet, but the whole year we've been working to virtual learning. But could you access, or how could you support for those socioeconomically disadvantaged?
Yeah, so we certainly have a number of students that have needed to come and get a Chromebook from us. We have a large number of families that have needed to get hotspots from us. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have a large segment of our population that are really in need.
Absolutely. And I know that when I visit your school, I have a lot of cultural. I missed this events. So when the school reopened, so just remember to invite me
Absolutely.
to join in again. And I know that when I visit your school, there was one class that teach the student how to make a T-shirt and also design the T-shirt. Are those classes still open?
Yes, Insane Ink.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're still going. And actually, my Insane Ink teacher, she's amazing, Diane Pereira, and she's been running a cohort since November. She was one of very early on having a cohort where they are still making T-shirts and still selling them. They sell them every Tuesday afternoon.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Good job, Ms. Davis. I'm open up for all my board colleagues. Any board member Doe, go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the presentations. And I'm looking forward to seeing Piedmont Hill next week on Wednesday. And in preparation to come to your school, I'll take a look at your website. I just want to say kudos to your website. And if you are at home or you're going to get on the internet, one of the best features of the website is not only the totality, but the one part is a coffee with the principal, where you list all the wonderful topics. And I think we all can use, I'm just going to rattle off a couple of them. Importance of sleep. I think a lot of our board members can appreciate that. The suicide prevention tip, the intro to mindfulness, the bright side of blunder, why we should let kids fail. So that's something I have to remind myself for that. So I just want to say thank you. And I appreciate your website, and I appreciate the effort that you're putting in to communicate with the parents and your staff.
Yeah, thank you for that recognition. I'm also the parent of a teenager. My daughter is a senior in high school. And so when I started as a principal, I really looked at, as a parent, what do I wish my daughter's school provided for me? And so that's really the attitude I've come with this. And yeah, we do it every week, where we don't do coffee with the principal anymore because, pandemic. We do Zoom with the principal, but every week, we did it this morning. We talked about health and fitness. It's great.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Oh, Bruce, Nguyen, go ahead, please.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your presentation. It was I really enjoyed it. I have a question. This came to my attention just recently. I have heard from Piedmont Hill students that there is some discrepancy or lack of communication regarding the issues concerning accountability within student leadership. You mentioned earlier that you wanted, or the school was planning to increase inclusiveness among clubs, right? And right now, I'm currently aware about a recent racist incident. And this incident, I would say, would contradict the Pirate Way, which occurred among students, that resulted in a school-wide apology being made by the Associated Student Body, ASB. However, that statement on social media has been removed for some reason. And the question that I'm asking you right now is, what has the Piedmont Hills administration done to repair the harm made to the student body because of that action?
Yeah, so myself and my associate principal, Mr. Campbell, met with our leadership class. We've talked about it, and we, have addressed the issue.
Thank you. Board Member Chavez, please.
Of course. Thank you for your presentation. I
Mhm.
really appreciate it. I jotted down a few thoughts, but as I was reading your presentation beforehand and listening to it now, it's pretty clear that the way that you're thinking about approaching this next year is different from years past.
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear how you're thinking about that in a more like reflective way, besides like what's here and what has led to this being the case and it being different.
First off, let me say I'm very proud of my staff and the work that they've done this year. They have worked extremely hard, but I've been very aware this year just of the mental health needs of my staff and of the students, and just how much support everybody needs, and just knowing that when we come back, we just can't go back business as usual, that there is going to be an adjustment to that. And what we emphasize, I think one thing that's happened this year is, we've been able to really see what's important and what's not important in terms of teachers with their curriculum and paring down the curriculum and really emphasizing these are the key points that we need to cover. But also it's really become very apparent, what we've learned this year is that the school connection piece is really, really important. And it's not just about the academics. Academics obviously are important, but clubs and sports and all of the stuff that's the stuff that's really been missing this year, and the importance of that, and having a kid be successful and having them be happy and healthy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'm aligned there. And another thing that I appreciate is how you aligned your goals, your strategies from WASC to have them fit to what is going to be needed this upcoming year. But just with anything, I think it's important that we keep a pulse on the progress we're making, right? Whether it's qualitative, quantitative, on these. And here, it's not clear to me how are you going to identify a win with your strategies or with your goals, right? I see some high level metrics here, but how are you thinking about it? If I reach this level or these many people, or I don't even know what a metric would look like. Have you thought about that? And how to, at what point will you know, oh, this isn't working? And it's not necessarily the academic goal, but it's something that I care about and I know is needed for my school to move forward.
Yeah, I have a really excellent MTSS committee, and we actually had a meeting yesterday where we were talking about this very topic and ways that we can measure our success and what we're trying, and really looking at student input, whether it's short surveys with students. One thing I've done in the past is student focus groups, and continuing that work to really get a gauge on from the students what's working and what's not working.
I'm assuming also from the teachers, right? I saw big focuses on teachers too. Okay, great. And again, I know it's not all about, academics, especially coming back into this year, but we're going to have a full year of instruction still in some way, shape, or form. When you think, I heard you start speaking to it with we're going to hone in on these key standards or these key goals or whatnot. When you think of overall how you're setting up your school staff, setting up the expectations while focusing on this, when you think about what is the win that I'm going to get this year, through this, there is going to be some sort of learning. And I know that I'm going to be able to see X at the end of the year. What do you envision that being?
From the teachers or?
From the academic end, in supporting your students. I mean, in a normal year, we say I'll be able to reach 80% graduation, this many, AP classes or whatever. But as you hone in and just saying, I'm going to just hone in on these key areas, right? As you think about are your focus areas? What is that going to lead to? What is, like, if you were to say one win, that's like instructional, what area would that be moving if you can't think of like a specific thing, but within the instructional thing, because that instruction is still going to continue to happen, right, through all of this, but it's going to be more honed in, more focused. So what would you say that would be?
So things that like we're working on as the admin team with, when you're talking about academics, is really focusing on, I would love to see an increase of our students taking a 4th year of math. I really want to see an increase of our students taking a 3rd year of world language. I see way too many of our students stopping at year 2 in world language, and they really need to go on to year 3. So yeah, there's really like things that we need to work on. I hate when I see a student that really should be in that 4th year of math and they stopped.
Okay, so that's something that's going to be top of mind. Is that what I'm hearing? As even though like this will obviously be the focus and the meat of it through it, that will, you're foreseeing that being moved.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no more board comment. Thank you, Ms. Davis, for your
Oh.
presentation.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Oh, you want? Oh, okay. All right.
I have a comment as well. If you'd like me
Oh,
to
Bruce,
add.
oh, go ahead. I didn't see you, sorry.
Meeting with many students at Piedmont Hills, it feels like there's a lot to be desired in the statements made by the school. But to add, I've also met and discussed about sexual assault prevention, because that's something the school should also address, because I've heard about something that might have happened to another student. Are you and or others in the administration also working to address sexual assault specifically?
Of course.
In what way?
Well, I'm actually, it's my topic in 2 weeks for my parents when I meet with them.
I would be happy to join that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so the next presentation will be Dr. Vivian Ronley, Principal of Santa Teresa.
Excuse me, Madam President. I would be remiss if I didn't make a comment. I'm a parent at Piedmont Hills High School, and there is a lot to be desired at Piedmont Hills. I have 2 young ladies that attend Piedmont Hills, and as a representative from the district, it just breaks my heart to hear our schools be perceived and be talked about in such a way as a result of one incident, possibly when the full story is not known. So I just want to put it out there, Bruce. I know you have the incident. I appreciate you bringing it to the attention. A lot of things are, as an administrator, to be kept confidential when things happen. But I do want to say that as a parent of 2 young ladies at Piedmont Hills High School, they have had a fabulous experience at Piedmont Hills High School. One is graduating and about to go to Chico State, and I have a freshman who's a straight A student, and it's because of the teachers that attend an administration at Piedmont Hills High School.
Some comments from Teresa Marcus. Yeah, go
Can
ahead,
I-
Board Jarvis.
Sorry, before we move on, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Marquez, for making that comment, and to all principals here and the ones who are hearing have come past and present. I want to make sure, and probably haven't been the best at showing this, I'll speak for myself, that the purpose of these presentations is to get to know the schools in a more intimate level, to ask the questions, to really engage, so we can know what is this community about, and it not to feel, the goal is not for it to feel like it's a gotcha or you're not doing enough, right? So if that has ever felt that way, I want to apologize. That is not the goal in any way, shape, or form. And I want to thank you for coming in and coming forward and putting your best foot forward, and not knowing like, oh gosh, what could that person ask me, or what about that person? And I could empathize. I haven't been a principal presenting to a board anytime recently, but if I were in your shoes coming up here, I could imagine what it feels like. So for whatever it's worth, know that we appreciate you, know that y'all are kicking behind, and that we are very proud of our principals. And these questions come from, at least, when I speak for myself, from a place of genuine curiosity and just wanting to learn and understand. So I know at the end of the day, we are partners in supporting our students and our community to move forward and be the best that they can be. I know we are, there is no doubt, but just wanted to take a moment to really reiterate that, because I get a feeling in the room and I'm like, this opportunity to share. So for whatever it's worth.
Yes, go ahead, Board Member Doe.
I too share the curiosity and very enthusiastic about learning about your school. And thank you, Associate Superintendent Marquez, for that comment, as well as Bruce. But I do have a very tough question to ask Principal Clerk Nurse and Ms. Davis. Which one of your school is ahead on the enrollment stat at the moment? Yes.
That's Evergreen. Usually it's Mr. Berg and I that used to compete, but I think Evergreen is
Sorry to put you on the spot there, the tough questions.
Thank you, Board Member Joe. All right, now let's hear from Dr. Vivian Rollet from Santa Teresa presentation.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to share with you that Santa Teresa was just visited by WASC, and I'm really proud to say that we had a very successful visit. Our staff did an amazing job, engaged in a lot of reflection, and this process was about 2.5 years in the making. We were initially expecting to be visited last spring, and so our staff had prepared in the 18-19 school year, the 19-20 school year, and it happened to be postponed until just this recently. So we were visited just this Sunday to yesterday. I'm really proud of our staff because in addition to about 2.5 years of reflection and digging deep and answering all kinds of questions related to all kinds of indicators related to our organization, our leadership, our curriculum, our instruction, our assessment system, and our climate and culture, we dug really deep and prepared for focus groups. And in those conversations, had a lot of heart-to-heart conversations as a staff together, and had heart-to-heart conversations between and among our teachers and our parents, as well as our students, in how and what ways we can make our school a better place. Today, the school plan for student achievement that I'll present is in alignment with our WASC self-study. It's in alignment with the areas of growth that the visiting committee had identified back in 2014. And it's consistent with the self-study that our staff underwent and also received input from our parents and students in developing that self-study. And the goals, as well as the strategies and activities in our effort to meet those goals, are in alignment with what our WASC visiting committee left for us in terms of the work they'd like to see for the next 6 years. So without further ado, I'd like to share a little bit about our school community. So of course, all of the work that we do is centered on building equitable communities. And of course, as a district, we're committed to building capacity amongst all staff members to ensure that equity and inclusion are essential principles of our school system. In the goals that I'll present tonight, you'll see that they are all centered on building equitable learning communities. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how the SIPSA was presented to the Santa Teresa High School community. We believe that the SIPSA fundamentally is a living document, and it's something that can be changed over time with the changing needs of our community. We believe that input should be received by all stakeholder groups, including our staff, our administrative team, our students, and our parents, as well as community members who'd like to give input. The SIPSA is in alignment with our district's LCAP. It is in alignment with the area of growth, again, that was presented to us in 2014 during our visit, as well as the visit that we just had. Our goals happen to be in alignment with exactly what our WASC committee left for us, in addition to the self-study areas that we had identified for growth. Of course, we ensured that stakeholder input was made available. And of course, our SIPSA 2, another important consideration is our school budget. And again, I just wanted to highlight that our school plan is a living document. It's something that we're planning to revisit very frequently. And in fact, moving forward, we talked with our school site council, and we'd like to ensure that the progress that we're making towards our SIPSA is part of our monthly meeting agenda item. So we're wanting that to be a standing agenda item and to really look at metrics and data in a really organized and meaningful way. So the goals in our school plan were fundamentally based on what our staff discovered as our areas of need as part of our self-study preparation process. Additionally, though, those goals were supported in examining very closely California school dashboard data pulls that we did at the site, as well as with the help of our district office. And we also examined very closely Panorama school climate data and Shape school climate data as well. In asking, how do our goals align with our school accreditation process? They're in 100% alignment. Next slide, please. It is the mission of Santa Teresa High School to provide a safe and caring learning environment where students achieve the academic, aesthetic, personal, and social development required to continue learning and pursuing post-secondary education, to compete in a changing job market, and to participate in a multicultural democratic society. As you can see, our population, our school demographics are outlined on the chart shown. I'd like to dig into our SIPSA goals. As I mentioned, they are in alignment with our WASC goals. Our first goal is to improve our A through G rates. At Santa Teresa, we're very proud of our graduation rate. It is quite high. It always remains in the high 90s. However, it really is important to disaggregate the graduation data as well as look at A through G eligibility for CSU and UC admissions. And one area of growth that we've all identified as a staff and are committed to improving is the graduation rate of our English language learners. As you can see, there's a discrepancy. Our graduation rate is at 82.1%, whereas our overall graduation rate is at 93% for this same year that was examined. Our A through G rate is currently at 57.9%, but we know that this could be so much higher. In terms of our first goal, we are going to be very ambitious as a staff. We did a lot of reflection, and we decided that it was really important for us to look 1 year out, 3 years out, and 5 years out, and really identify metrics that are both ambitious as well as doable. We really believe that this is something that can be accomplished. So as you can see, we're starting at 70.9% for A through G rate as of the data that was provided to us or that we could pull for this spring. By spring 2022, we'd really like to be at 61%, by spring 2025 at 70%, and by spring 2027 at 76%. We also need to be equally ambitious with improving our A through G rate for our English language learners. As shown here, we're currently at a 28.1% for A through G eligibility. And this is something that as a staff, we're very passionate about improving. As you can see, our metrics are outlined in terms of our A through G rate. In 1 year out, we'd like to be at 33%. 3 years out, we'd like to be at 38%. And 5 years out, we'd like to be at 43%. Although we will work as hard as we can to close the opportunity or equity gap, if you will. Another really important goal to our staff is to decrease suspensions, but there's a specific type of suspension that we're committed to working on as a staff. And those are the suspensions that fall under 48900K or are 48900K like. So that would include suspensions that have to do with the use of profanity or obscenity in classes. And specifically, we're wanting to improve our rate of out of class suspensions. So it's not necessarily the data point of out of school suspensions that our staff is worried about. I mean, there's always room for improvement there, but one area that we think will cause just fundamental change would be the out-of-class suspensions. So essentially that means that if a student were to use profanity in class, that instead of potentially suspending them for 1 or 2 class periods, that we could engage in restorative practices to ensure that instructional time is not lost and that the relationship between student and teacher can stay strong, as well as with the relationships student to student. One area of focus that's really important for us to address at Santa Teresa with respect to suspensions and with respect to 48900K is related to the disproportionality in suspension of our African-American students. As you can see to date, our suspension rate, well, this is kind of pre-COVID, but it was at 13.2% when we were still in person, whereas only 2.8% of our student population is African-American. So as you can see, there's a level of disproportionality there that we need to address. And we've reflected deeply about potentially what is leading to these numbers. As you can see, we're also wanting to be very ambitious and show our commitment by outlining our 1 year out, 3 year out, and 5 year out goals. And so you can see that 1 year out, we'd like to ensure that less than 11.2% of our students are suspended, 3 years out, less than 5.6%. And we expect that by 5 years out, we should at least be proportional. We really strongly believe that in order to build equitable communities, this data point has to change, and we're committed to doing that work together as a staff. I'd just like to share that the WASC committee commended Santa Teresa High School for our wonderful climate and culture overall. We were commended for our robust extracurricular programs, our very strong athletic programs. We have over 65 clubs. We have one of the, I would say, top performing model UN clubs in the state, if not the country, or if not the world. We have a lot of strong programming. We have very highly qualified teachers and staff, and we were also commended for our commitment to social emotional learning. For the last several years, Santa Teresa teachers have participated in Passage Works, and more recently have participated in mindfulness practices, and our students have as well. The WASC committee commended us for this wonderful effort. Simultaneously, they agreed with our staff that our areas of growth really have to do with our academics and specifically our A through G eligibility rate. A fifth goal that we identified as a staff is in relation to chronic absenteeism, specifically targeting our unexcused absences right when they happen. So we do use our early warning system as a staff. We actually increased our team this year to include our advisors, our social worker, our parent community liaison, our assistant principal, and of course myself. And we've been really concentrating on ensuring that as soon as that first unexcused absence happens, that we're conferencing with families right away to ensure that we're building and maintaining strong relationships, but also getting to root causes of the unexcused absences. And sometimes it's just simply an explanation of how to call in an unexcused absence. Next slide, please. So we have identified as a staff, similar to our very ambitious metrics, a very ambitious, but we do think this is possible, rollout of 8 key strategies and actions that our staff will take. And I'm really proud to say that our staff came up with these areas, these strategies, and these actions ourselves all together as part of our self-study report. If you were to read our self-study report, you would find language in this across all areas. You'll see some of these strategies and some of these recommendations for ourselves come up in the area centered on leadership and organization, on curriculum, on instruction, on our assessment program, as well as climate and culture. And our WASC visiting committee also commended us for doing that deep reflection and for outlining the strategies. And in fact, even though they were not able to leave us with a full report yesterday when they left this afternoon, they did give us a very comprehensive PowerPoint where again, they outlined the strengths that they wanted to commend us for, as well as areas of follow-up. And it just so happens that the areas in their PowerPoint for areas of growth really match what's outlined here. So just to give an overview, I just wanted to share that our staff is very committed to a rich and robust series of collaboration events next year. And as you can see, there's hours that we talked about that would take to make these deliverables possible, and specifically the strategies and activities. All of the strategies and activities that are outlined here are centered on our staff coming together to build common assurances. And all in all, the common assurances that we believe that will really drive our A through G rate forward have to do with our grading practices and policies. We really do believe that we need to revisit our level of equity in terms of our grading practices. One thing that I'm extremely proud of our staff and our teachers this year is their sense of flexibility this year and heart and compassion for our students and families. Many of our teachers have engaged with our administrative team one-on-one, as well as small groups, as well as among each other, really talking about how important it is to be flexible and give opportunities, multiple opportunities for students to see material, give opportunities for students to be able to demonstrate their knowledge, and engage in multiple opportunities to raise their grades. So all of the strategies and actions here are really centered on that work. Part of being able to revisit the grading policies also have to do with having conversations about what everyone is teaching in subject or course alike classes. And part of that work that our staff identified, as well as WASC identified, is really digging deep and looking at our overall curriculum and identifying those priority and secondary standards, and really looking at the standards from a standpoint of competency and mastery, as opposed to compliance. So this is work that many of our teams have echoed that they would like to focus on. And I just like to name some of those themes because I'm really proud of each team individually. Our MTSS Tier 1 team is very passionate about creating these common assurances. Our department chairs are also engaging in this work because they will need to pull together all of the teachers in their department, all the courses across grade levels. Additionally, our professional development committee will be working very closely with our MTSS Tier 1 team, as well as our new TOSA, who will work very closely with our professional development committee in that work. I'm also extremely proud to say that our ESTA site leadership will be working collaboratively together with our Tier 1 team, as well as our professional development committee. I just really want to highlight how proud I am that we're all on board on the same page there. Thank you. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight that the SIPSA is a living document, and as a commitment at the last school site council meeting, when I presented the overview of the goals and in sort of like the final format, if you will, but it's a living document. We agreed that we'd like to revisit the SIPSA as well as the progress that we've made towards the SIPSA every month. And in the previous slide, you saw some deliverables that were listed there that our staff will be committed to working on every 6 weeks, essentially every grading period. And with our school site council, which is comprised of parents, students, teachers, our classified staff, and our administrative team as well, we'll be reviewing our progress on our deliverables, on how the collaborations are going, on how and to what extent we're moving our data points and working towards the metrics that were outlined in the previous slide. I'm also very proud to share that Phoenix High School was visited by WASC in January. And similar to Santa Teresa High School, we were expecting to be visited last school year, but the visit was postponed to this year. For both schools, this was sort of a gift because it allowed us to engage as a staff and as a community in deeper reflection and deeper learnings about our practice and what we're committed to changing to make our schools an even better place. Next slide, please. Similar to Santa Teresa High School, we have a similar message to our community that the SIPSA is a living document. It can be changed over time. It can be revisited as things change. Similar to Santa Teresa High School, our goals at Phoenix were developed by looking, of course, at California dashboard data, looking at data pools from the site level, as well as asking the district office for support. Additionally, our goals were largely tied again to our WASC self-study process. There was so much reflection that was involved with our staff, our parents, and our students that our goals really came straight from our self-study report, as well as the areas of follow-up that our WASC committee left for us. Next slide, please. It is the mission of Phoenix High School to provide a safe and caring environment where students achieve the academic, personal, and social development required to continue learning, pursue post-secondary education, compete in a dynamic job market, and participate in a diverse democratic society. The school aims to build a community of students who are responsible, inquisitive, socially adept, and educationally sound. Like the mythological bird from whence the school was named after, Phoenix students rise. As you can see, our enrollment data is listed there on the slide. So at Phoenix, we really engaged in a very collaborative process in developing our goals. We actually sat together, well, virtually. So we were all on our computers, virtually working, and we also wanted to be committed to very ambitious goals. With regards to college and career readiness, the California dashboard data doesn't quite relate as well, being that we are a continuation school, if you will, and that data doesn't quite do us justice in that we're not able to track that data in a meaningful way. And so what we're wanting to do and what we're committed to starting this spring and following up through the summer and the fall is developing exit surveys and entrance surveys to really get a sense of what students' goals are in terms of if they'd like to attend a two-year college, if they'd like to pursue vocational school, a full-time job, or both. That way we can ensure that the appropriate resources are marshaled on a personalized basis. So at Phoenix, one of the areas that we were commended by our WASC visiting committee for was our personalized learning plans. Every student at Phoenix has a plan that outlines their credit accrual. It includes pieces of artifacts in terms of their student work and assessments, but one piece that is missing is really having data about what they'd like to do after they graduate. So we'd like to ensure that we are very closely tracking where students would like to be when they graduate. So as you can see, we're planning to develop exit surveys, and specifically, we're wanting to ensure that all students matriculate to the goals that they've outlined for themselves. In order to do this, we have to improve our graduation rate. As you can see, our current graduation rate is 59.5%. As a staff, we deliberated about the different reasons why this is. However, at the end of the day, regardless of the reasons that were discussed, we're all committed to improving this rate. So as you can see, 1 year out, we believe that we can get to 65%. 3 years out, we believe we can get to 80%. And by spring 2027, we think that we can get to 90%. Of course, our goal is to ensure, because it's the purpose of Phoenix, that every student graduates. We also need to work on decreasing our suspension rate, being that we are a school with smaller numbers, and these numbers are reflective of our in-person situation. Ultimately, we would like to get to the point where we're not suspending any students. Similar to what was shared at Santa Teresa High School, one of our areas of growth is really the suspensions related to 48,900K, and those out of class suspensions for for behavior that can be addressed in a more restorative way by pulling a student potentially out of class, or conferencing with them as well as with their family to get to root causes, but also to talk about other ways to share emotion. Our fifth goal at Phoenix High School is to also address attendance, but specifically at Phoenix, our average daily attendance rate has been a bit alarming. And this is something that we're really passionate about as a staff to improve. And we know that that all comes down to building stronger relationships before students come to us. So one thing that we're committed to is ensuring that those initial connections are made this spring prior to the start of the school year. And we do have a little bit of a rolling enrollment. And so we're going to make a concerted effort to improve that. One step that we've already taken is actually next week, we're offering a series of enrollment meetings where we're hoping to make those initial connections, albeit virtually, eventually be in person so that we can pre-conference with families and have more meaningful conversations about what students and their parents aspire for them and dream for them, and follow those strong connections and relationships through their time with us at Phoenix. Next slide, please. So we dug really deep, and I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, we together on a shared Google Doc, virtually of course, dug in and we went line by line and came up with different common assurances that we can agree to as a staff. Phoenix is a smaller staff. We're comprised of 4 teachers. Someone who wears many, many different hats. She's basically attendance secretary, principal secretary, registrar. She's everything. And we also have a counselor who is split between ST and Phoenix. And together we sat down and decided what we can do differently as a staff. So ultimately, our teachers are agreeing to creating diagnostic tests, mid-course tests, and having more baseline information so that we can be more strategic about supporting students in the classroom every step of the way. We already have the spirit in this level of personalization with our PLPs, our personalized learning plans, but we're wanting to take this one step further with data. So one thing that we were commended for by the WASC committee as well is the hearts that we all have for kids and the passion that our teachers have demonstrated. Simultaneously, the WASC visiting committee and we ourselves in reflection know that we need to do this work also in ways that are data informed. And so unlike Santa Teresa, we don't have multiple teachers who are in the same departments because we're a small school with 4. So what we're going to do is collaborate across content areas to share with each other different baseline or diagnostic tests that have been developed, share with each other different mid-course assessments and end-of-course assessments or culminating projects, if you will. We are also going to collaborate in a new way with our APD, of course, our principal as well, and our counselor to ensure that we are doing a better job of tracking progress on CAR packets, which are basically standards aligned projects that students complete to earn credits. Of course, the progress they're making in their coursework, as well as the progress they're making in Cyber High. So there's new systems and protocols that we've started to put in place this year and will continue into next year to ensure that we're doing a better job of monitoring students' progress and lifting them up when we find out that there's a point where they're really struggling. Thank you.
Done. All right. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Vivian. It's very good presentation, and I now aware of Hispanic racial student in your school is higher than I thought. Asian or white racial student. So that's caught me by surprise. But when I look into the also Phoenix presentation from you as the race and ethnicity, And I saw that 82.2% also student Hispanic attend the Phoenix school. I remember that I had, went to visit Santa Teresa High School, and Phoenix the classroom has been remodeled. It's not in the mobile, and cubicle and mobile home anymore, but it's more like it's very nice building. I was wondering that with the percentage of the Hispanic ratio is very high, do you have enough bilingual teacher or staff to support those Hispanic students? And how are we gonna, and I mean, I look into this presentation, and I saw the percentage of Hispanic attend Phoenix is still high. And I was wondering what other ethnic has been, implemented, into the Phoenix high school.
So we are ensuring as a staff that all students are welcome. And one of those ways that we have improved this year at Santa Teresa High School is, in addition to utilizing Language Line, also leaning on key staff that are very proficient translators. And when I say proficient, I mean they know the lingo of IEPs, they know educator type of technical terms, and they're really able to engage with students and parents in a very deep and meaningful way. We have actually asked for more allowances in order to pay for people to translate for us during the school day, during IEP meetings, and any meeting that a teacher may have with a parent and with a student during IST meetings, as well 504s, IEPs. And I'm very proud to say that we recently hired a phenomenal counseling technician who is also leading our LPC, our Latino Parent Coalition. She is bilingual, and again, she has that level of proficiency that's very high. She's able to explain concepts in very great depth to our parents about college and career readiness, about curriculum, about how to navigate our school as a system, and how to navigate beyond the K-12 system, the college admissions pathways as well.
Yeah, as look into the goal that you set for AG rate graduation is even either EL graduation rate, the goal is very achievable. And then I like to see that, in the next following, presentation next year, to see that rate has been really implemented, in the right percentage. On the goal 4, when you mentioned about decreased suspension, 2019 disproportionality 13.2% African Americans suspended, over 2.8% enrolled. Could you clarify this a little bit more? It's just really a question in my mind that how does that happen?
Yes, so this is a data point that we as a staff were alarmed by, honestly, when we looked at it, and definitely had to engage in some deep reflection and sort of honest recollection about different moves that we've made as adults. And when it became very aware that our student population, our African-American population is 2.8%, yet the suspension rate's at 13%, we know that that's very drastic disproportionality. And in our process of recollection, we know that those moments that lead to that are when a student maybe has some strong emotions and uses choice words and is then excused from class for 2 days under education code, which under education code, teachers are permitted to do that. However, we've had deep conversations about how that practice impacts the relationship between the student and teacher, and how that feels to the student as well as to the family as being irreparable, as well as when fellow classmates witness that action. It unfortunately leads to students sometimes losing confidence in the system and feelings of fairness. So as a staff, what we've done is we've had heart-to-heart conversations whenever this has happened. So whenever an adult has asked for that move of our administrative office, can you please suspend this student? I don't want them back from my class for 2 class periods. We've had heart-to-heart conversations with teachers. We've pulled in parents and students to talk about other ways of going about this. And one thing that I'm really proud of too with our Santa Teresa staff is their openness to being trained in restorative practices. So this year, many of our staff members did attend virtually restorative practice training at Phoenix as well. And in those professional development opportunities, we've also been able to engage in a level of reflection that is more systemic as well, and really understanding how those moments in class really have a ripple effect on that student, on that particular family, on that particular classroom community, and collectively that impacts our larger school community. We believe that in finding and isolating those moments and coming up with actions and strategies that will help correct, if you will, or redirect our responses to that type of behavior, that it'll echo throughout other ways that we handle issues in our classes, both on the social, emotional, and behavior management level, but also with how we approach academics. And again, goes back to that sense of compassion and heart and having flexibility for having extra time to complete assignments, flexibility with being able to retake assessments, and revisiting our grading policies to ensure that they're equitable.
Thank you for your response. And also my last comment is Santa Teresa has a very strong Vietnamese student club. I usually attend their TED event and the teacher Pauline went and trained very, supported, to the student. And I hope that after the pandemic, be able to visit your school again and support them. Hopefully that we will invite the group to perform on the Moon Festival in September. So thank you. All right, I'm open up for my board colleagues. Board Chavez, yes.
I loved your presentation, Vivian.
Thank you.
The moment that I read it, I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. This is so clear. I see everything. Like I can't go in your head, but it was as clear as it can get. So I want to commend you on that first. I heard you and I read on the Phoenix slides that those SIPSA key actions and strategies were set in the winter of 2021. Right? It sounds like aligned with when WASC was happening.
Yes.
When were they set for Santa Teresa?
The goals in our action plan were set just prior to April 15th. So on April 15th, we had a school site council meeting where the goals were presented to school site council. But prior to that, on April 13th, the draft to the overview that was presented to school site council was made available to all of our staff. And I asked for input from staff. Additionally, early April, and it could have been a little bit before then, I posted the SIPSA on our school website and sent out text messages asking families to check our website, as I do periodically. Anytime an announcement is posted to our important information at schs.schoolloop.com, I send out a text message through Infinite Campus asking families to check the website. And so there was an announcement posted indicating that I would be presenting the draft to the school site council and ask for feedback. Additionally, in the coffee chats or Zoom chats, if you will, with parents, I also mentioned that the document was ready for review and asked for input.
Very thorough. I was just curious. I was also gonna commend you on I really appreciated you noting who was involved in the creation and giving feedback, at least like initially to get the meat of the document and the strategies there. I think that is so important, right? Co-creation, so that, that leads to understanding, that leads to buy-in, to like, this is my work that I am committed to is huge. So thank you for that. I also heard you say data throughout, it's clear that you're looking at data constantly to inform what are the next steps. So we're not going into like, this is what, should happen blindly. So I really appreciated that. The PLP, I love that concept. And you said a phrase, I was just like, yes. It was like, we monitor student progress and we lift them when they are struggling. Like, yes, I'm like, that ongoing is so important, because our students and even us as adults, we have those moments, but to know that our children go to schools where that is true is super important above all. So thank you for providing that orientation and supporting our staff through that. And lastly, a few times I heard you say something to the extent of getting to the root. Particularly, I even wrote this down, 48900K, the suspensions, right? Having those heart-to-heart conversations, but it's not just like having those conversations, but it's informed heart-to-heart conversations, like really understanding what is happening so it could stop from happening, right? And that takes a lot at so many levels. So I also want to acknowledge you for that and thank you for that. So very nice work.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Vivian, and the Principal Jeannie Davis and Principal.
Thank you.
Dr. Very good presentation. So let's move on to item 9. Well, we don't have anything for item 9. So item 10 is public member who wish to address the board. 10.01, member of the public may address the board on any subject not on tonight's agenda. However, provision of the Broward Government Code section 54954.2a and 54954.3 preclude any action as an unagendized item. No response is required from the Board of District staff and no action can be taken. However, the board may instruct the superintendent to agendize the item for a future meeting. Any person may address the board on any item on the meeting agenda. Persons wishing to address the board must fill out a speaker request from via online submission. Your comment will be read out loud as a part of public meeting. Comments should be limited to no more than 1,000 characters in length. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom. To request to speak, you will have 2 minutes to speak. I do have a yellow statement from Julio Pardo, represent Sita.
Come on up to the podium.
Want to come up, and you have 5 minutes, Julio Pardo? No.
Good evening, board, superintendent, and staff. It's nice to see you all again. I think I was the only person here at your last in-person meeting over a year ago. Over the past year and a half, there have been some issues, and if I wanted to, I'd come up here and be real negative, but I feel pretty good the fact that you're all getting back together again, and so I want to be positive. And the first positive thing I want to say is that I said this earlier today, I have to commend the district for the way they kept the safety of our people that were working on sites and on the campuses and here at the district office. They made sure that we had all the materials we needed to stay safe. They, unlike some other districts that I've had to deal with at my union president meetings, our people were not forced to come back and crawl together right away. I mean, they made accommodations so that people that could come back a rotating basis. They made sure that people could work from home. People that really could not come back, they did try to accommodate them as best as possible. And so, yes, I did hear complaints. I mean, let's face it, we're going to hear complaints from everybody at some point. But overall, I think the district did a really good job when it comes to that. There will be times in the future when I will be speaking to some recommendations we have, not regarding the pandemic, just regarding some other issues. Second of all, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Dole and Ms. Cortese for their election. Never got to do that because we weren't together really. So congratulations on that. And I will be contacting all of you. Hopefully that I can meet with you in person in the future and try to work together to make things better for all my coworkers and myself. And I don't want to say it right now, but personally, I am sorry to see you go, Mr. Funk, but that's the future, and I will say more at the last meeting we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julio Pardo, President of CRCA. Any other public comments, Mr. Vanderzee?
There is no written public comment.
All right, thank you.
There are no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you, Superintendent Funk. All right, let's move to 11.01, presentation and information discussion and action regarding update on novel coronavirus, COVID-19 and spring and fall reopening of school. Mr. Superintendent Funk.
Good evening. Thank God I get to take my mask off for a few minutes. All right. As we all know, we are in the orange tier, and we were hoping Santa Clara County would be in the yellow tier as of yesterday, but it looks like that may happen next week. But look at this number down here, new cases 58. I remind the board and the community that on March 13th, our last day, we were at 49 positive cases. So we're almost back to where we were a year and a half ago. But look at all the vaccinations that are taking place, the testing, all the layered mitigations in place. So we were a lot safer and we were a lot smarter on how to address the pandemic than we were over a year ago. As a reminder, we are in phase 3 in person for some groups. And as you recall, last week, we shared with you the numbers of cohorts. So that has not really changed by site, and just over 3,000 students that are coming back either 1, 2, 3 days a week. I'm going to have Ms. Marquez just highlight, this was a report that was on the last, at the last board meeting, but we did not go into a lot of detail, and I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the summer school framework.
Thank you. Good evening once again, Board. Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent for Educational Services. So just want to bring back and surface the fact that for our summer school, we are planning a full in-person summer school for our students. We've worked with our principals in looking at the key elements for summer school. We've shared with the information with our bargaining units. I had held a forum for both certificated and classified staff to gather input, feedback, and respond to questions. And so we're excited to be able to return to in-person summer school where our students will begin summer school on June 21st. It is a 24-day summer school program, and our goal is to have 2 cohorts. Currently, we're planning with the existing restrictions and guidelines as per public health. And so the breaking up of the class into 2 cohorts, an AM cohort and a PM cohort, will allow for us to be able to maintain both our staff and students safe. And so the idea is for the first cohort in the morning to receive in-person instruction of about 2.5 hours. And then the afternoon cohort is at home doing their asynchronous work. And so it is going to require for our teachers to do some lesson planning, and we're prepared to support them in that manner with both professional development as well as compensation. Then in the afternoon, it's a flop. It's a flip-flop of our students. So as the cohort A group leaves during that 1-hour lunch, they grab their lunch, they're off campus, and then they enter into their asynchronous time where cohort B then is coming in. They'll have an opportunity to receive their lunch as well, eat their lunch prior to going into their in-person instruction for 2.5 hours. Our teachers will be compensated for 5.5 hours worth of work. This will allow them to be able to provide the 5 hours of instruction, but also have half an hour to support site staff and being able to support with the supervision, but also have their duty-free half-hour lunch. In addition, they'll be able to receive professional development for the planning and returning for in-person instruction. And as I mentioned, for lesson design to support that asynchronous piece. We're happy to announce that the compensation rate for our teachers has increased. And so we have agreed to that aspect where they'll be able to, we'll be able to be more competitive with other programs surrounding, and also just as an incentive for our teachers to be able to come back and get their feet wet with returning to in-person.
Any questions regarding summer school?
So the student in cohort B in PM group, they still can come early to get their lunch? Am I correct?
They will show up to lunch and then start their afternoon session
Afternoon
after
session.
lunch. Yes,
Oh, okay. And the cohort A, then they can pick up their lunch and go home.
yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
This will be mainly like for ninth grade, summer bridge, yeah? Is that
So
what? it-
this is
okay.
inclusive of all our grades. And so
Okay.
where before we had staggered start dates, we would wait for our feeder schools to complete their school year. This year, we decided to have the same date for all our students, just to allow us for more planning time. And so our ninth grade program will begin June 21st, as well as our credit recovery and acceleration program for our existing students. In addition, this is also the schedule for our students in our mild to severe programs, because we'll also be providing the extended school year to them. I do want to also mention, in addition to this, we're also providing learning loss mini sessions, recovery sessions, right before summer school, but as the year is ending. And this is opportunities for teachers to work with a group of students that they've identified from their existing classes, to provide them just a little bit more. Let's say they have 10 students that maybe if they only completed 2 more assignments, they would pass the class. If they only did a few more assessments, they would pass the class. And so the teacher is submitting proposals to their principals, noting that these are the kids I'm going to work with. I'm committed to changing their grade, their own teacher's grade that they themselves issued, if the student successfully completes the assignments or assessment that the teacher has provided for them in that extended time.
So that's available throughout the district, those 2
Correct.
weeks.
Correct.
Okay. And more so like in past years, how many kids have attended summer school, and do we expect around the same amount this year?
We're hoping more. We're hoping that we have more staffing to be able to provide additional courses. As part of next board meeting, you will see me present to you the plan for the expanded learning opportunities grant, which is allowing us to be able to provide additional funding for summer school. And so we're hoping to be able to extend it. For the most part, we've had about 108 sections summer school offered historically, but we're hoping to be able to offer a lot more so that more students can have access for the credit recovery. And also the addition of those mini sessions, I think, are going to be a tremendous help in supporting our students to be able to recoup a grade without having to do a full-on summer school, or do both if that's what's needed.
In your upcoming presentation, are you going to be talking about, because I had read that there's talk of including in those mini session other enrichment programs, maybe mental health or socialization or other enrichment programs for students that are not necessarily purely academic. Will you be talking about that later, or?
Not specifically, because that's based on staff proposals. So if a social worker, for example, wanted to submit a proposal to work with a group of students, or an activities director wanted to submit, they're able to submit those proposals to their principal so that they can provide whatever it may be that they're deciding and wanting to work on. And so we're really leveraging teachers' creativity to be able to, one, use these mini sessions as a means to be able to provide the credit recovery or the grade recovery, but also be able to support those that aren't in the classroom, such as social workers, activities directors, or teachers on special assignments, if they wanted to provide some enrichment opportunities for our students to be able to do that. I also want to mention that we continue to have our partnership with the Goodwill Assets Program, whom I just met with. And they're also going to continue to support not only our summer work, but our after-school enrichment opportunities. And so that we're not in competition with them, we've been communicating to ensure that they're still able to leverage the funds that they have as per the grant to be able to support in those areas.
So does it seem like those proposals are coming in for the enrichment type of things from our social workers?
The principals haven't completed their offerings yet. They're due on May 14th. And so I'll be able to know
okay.
more by the time they submit their course offerings.
Good, thank you.
I have a quick question. So if the student from cohort A, when they finish their class and they grab their lunch, could they still stay in the school? Maybe because the parent didn't, could not pick them up, or they have to go back home, or are we going to open our library? what make it accessible for our student, or how does it work for, our staff?
Yeah, so our goal is to have the students in cohort A exit the campus, just because of, again, the capacity and the ability to be able to supervise and bring in the new group. And so our goal is to exit them out safely, so that they can then do their asynchronous time, grab their lunch, eat, and then also do their asynchronous time, which is going to contribute to part of their grade in order for them to receive their credits. And so we are going to be asking students that if they're not, if it's not their turn to be in class, that they do exit the campus, just so that we can minimize the socialization that we know is going to happen with kids, especially since they haven't seen each other, so that we can really adhere to the safety protocols that we have in place.
Thank you.
And the challenge in the summertime is we just don't have as much staff, right? Because it's voluntary to work in the summertime. They get paid, but you just don't have the staff to support your after-school activities like you do during the school year.
Awesome. All right. Any
So
other-
that leads us to what everyone wants to know is what's going to happen in the fall. I thought I fixed that 2021. Sorry. Next week, we expect the May revise, and in this top box here, you see the Assembly Democrats were very clear with their priorities. They had like 7 or 8 priorities, but the very first bullet was a budget for fully in-person instruction, safe school instruction, transportation, and student support. So we fully expect that Sacramento will actually say, yes, everyone has to return back to school in the fall. And that's really the right thing for them to do. The governor, through his executive order, shut down all schools last spring and summer and into the fall. He has the authority to do that. But in this case, because they're working on their budget, then Sacramento, the legislature, actually can negotiate that with him. And so, it's my expectation across California that all schools open up, including Eastside. And it will be daily in-person instruction. The question will be this: will we still have to follow CDC and public health guidelines of 3 feet distance in a classroom? Because right now, if we don't have to follow that, all school sites will go back to their pre-pandemic bell schedule. Don't have to negotiate that, don't have to vote on it, the schedule's there. But if we have to follow the 3-foot rule, then there's no way we'll be able to fit 32 to 35 kids in a classroom. And so every single section will have to be split into 2 sections. So period 1 will have a group of 15 for 30, 40 an hour. And then the second group will come in for 30, 40 minutes to an hour, whatever we decide on schedule. So it would behoove us to begin having that conversation to plan if we have to have a B schedule. And the recommendation is that, similar to distance learning, we would have a single schedule for all of our comprehensive sites, if that 3-foot requirement is in place. If it's not, we're back to normal, and that's fantastic. Now, when I say back to normal, it probably will still mean we're going to have to wear masks in the classroom. We're still going to have the layered mitigations like student testing and staff testing in place. We're still going to have to do all the cleaning. We still may have these, especially if a teacher or a student would like to have it on their desk. But we're hopeful that the 3-foot rule goes away, because that really creates havoc for our schedules at the comprehensive high school. Not so much for elementary or middle school. And so the next steps really is about preparing for that option B, if you will, that we have to have an alternative schedule. Not distance learning, everyone's still showing up every day for in-person, but a non-traditional schedule. And so, I'm asking Glenn to kind of take the lead on that as he's coming in, working with stakeholders along with Teresa to bring back the opening task force to engage them. Certainly, we have to engage our teachers and our classified staff and our administrators, similar to what we did last summer to prepare for this school year. And then the third bullet here, or third option, is right now under Ed Code, there is no option for distance learning. There is under the pandemic, but there isn't under Ed Code. And so any family, unless the May revise or the adopted budget has language that allows for distance learning, then any family that wants to keep their child home would have to enroll in independent study. So they could still do distance learning through independent study, but that is a different set of requirements and guidelines. And so hopefully the legislature in their wisdom will provide us some flexibility around distance learning and asynchronous learning that will count towards instructional minutes. Because if that happens, then we really have a chance to reinvent ourselves in education and not just fall back to how we always used to do things. So it's best to begin that planning now, just in case we don't have that flexibility from CDC. So yes.
I'm going to be curious to see how we resolve if we have to split instructional time in two, how we avoid doubling the workload for teachers, you know, because that's twice as much time for the same cohort of students.
Yeah, so I mean, the easy answer would be that maybe you only have 3 periods a day, right? Because that teacher actually will be teaching or seeing kids 6 times. You know, it might only be 2.5 sections a day. I'm not sure how you do the half section. I'm just thinking out loud here. But that would be the challenge. And that means that students would not see their English teacher every single day of the week. In a block schedule, you don't see your English teacher every day, but it would be even less than a block schedule. And so that's not ideal. And that's why hopefully that 3-foot rule goes away, because that really will create a very challenging situation. Other questions, comments?
And we already prepare for all sanitizer, all equipment that ready for our student when come back, right?
Well, we'll constantly have to replenish our supplies, but because we had enough initially for 6 months and we never came back until now, and only 3,000 out of 22,000 came back, we're going to start the year in good shape. But yes, we'll constantly have to reorder, and the supply lines are much easier to get to now than they were last spring and early summer.
And you said we'll know more in May, or when? Well,
Did
we're
they
in May.
revise next week?
That's when
We'll get a better sense of what the language and expectations will be in the budget. Now, of course, the adopted budget doesn't happen until June. And so we'll get a better sense if it's going to be a mandate that we all come back, which I'm hoping it is. And then hopefully we'll have a sense of whether there'll be some flexibility in the instructional minutes, asynchronous versus synchronous learning, and if that counts towards instructional minutes, and then whether or not there'll be specific carve out language for distance learning, or do we put everyone in independent studies that doesn't want to come back. The CDC is separate from the state budget, right? And public health. So public health, so Sacramento can't mandate the 3 feet go away.
Yeah.
That's public health that does that. And so they probably won't make that decision until probably mid-July. That's why it's important to plan for that alternative schedule.
Okay, so we'll have some clarity in terms of the state, anything tied to budget. Next board meeting, but truly we won't know what next year will mean until we figure out in July what the CDC says.
We won't know what the specific schedule will be in the fall until probably mid-July.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to reassure the community is that the expectation, at least from this person, and it looks like from the state assembly, is that everyone is back in person.
Okay, thank you.
One more question for you, Chris. Are we going to have a task force for reopening school, just like we had it before, right?
Yes, I did make a promise to that task force that we would come back together in May to discuss what next fall would look like. And so I'm really asking Mr. Vanderzee whether or not he wants to facilitate that now, have me continue that, have Ms. Marquez continue that, or all of us be a part of it. because I know of all the duties that, he's starting to transition in, but that still means he's doing his old stuff. So I just want to, I just want to point out though, that the planning needs to begin now for the fall, because we can't wait to see if CDC makes any
Yeah.
decisions.
Absolutely agree with you. Any other board comments? No, thank you, Chris, for your presentation, and also Associate Superintendent Teresa Marquez. So let's move to 11.02, discussion and action to adopt proposed 2021-2022 board meeting calendar. I think that we can adopt it, approve it, and if we have any other change, we still can, go back and, at the time that we can revise it. Oh my God.
There are a couple of dates that we're looking at.
Well, if everybody responded, we ought to know the answer already. I responded to the email. Oh, then we'll have to bring it
Was
back.
it? So we want
It's the
to
same guy who was
refer
waiting.
this item to next board meeting?
We can
Okay.
bring it back next board
All
meeting.
right.
Sure.
Let's
So we
just
can
bring
do
it
that.
back, 'cause we know
Sure.
already that there's.
Yeah, a
things that we
couple
wanna
of
change, so-
board meeting that we
Board
could make.
retreat in August needs to be changed, and the December organizational meeting
Right,
has to be changed.
absolutely. I see.
I don't want to pontificate, but I want to, I became aware early that the impact of changing our board meetings has, because, so many people set their calendars according to our calendar.
Mm,
So, other people that need to be at these meetings plan
couldn't make it, yeah.
holidays or vacations or whatever around what we're doing. So I want to make sure that we get it as close to right as we can the first time, and try to avoid making changes. I realize things happen, and that's, that's inevitable, but if we can just be mindful that a lot of people are, organize their calendar around our calendar, and if we could avoid changing it, I think that's lessens the impact on the organization and even families or people who want to participate. So anyway,
Right.
I'd say that.
That's still the plan. Yeah.
It's still the plan.
So basically, this was going to be our test run, and it seems to be working extremely well. So that if a trustee has to travel personal business, they can still pop in and we can see their face as opposed to calling in. So this was the kind of the trial, and it's working out well.
Absolutely, great idea. All right, so we refer 11.02 to next board meeting. All right, so move on to 12.01. Am I correct? Okay. All right, 12.01, discussion and or action to approve designation of California Interscholastic Federation CIF representative to league for 2021-2022. Ms. Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam President. Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent at Services. This is a standard item that is brought to the board every year to allow our schools to participate in athletics through the California Interscholastic Federation. So I ask the board to approve the list.
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay,
Give it to
we
the
still need to
women.
do roll call, right, Mary? Go ahead, please. You know who first?
No, we
Manuel
don't need to do
Rivera
roll call
Odimu-
because you're all present. No.
Or student board. Oh, okay. No roll call, okay. It was confusing in a way. Okay, board student governance board, Bruce Nguyen, how do you vote?
I approve.
All right, thank you. So when all in favors, aye. Mary, do you get the first move approval, Mr. Manuel Herrera? Was that Patty or? Oh, Patty is first, and second is Manuel Herrera. And Chavez, okay. Okay, first approval is.
President, may I add something?
Elliot, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Since this meeting is both virtual and live,
it is hard to see or to hear as a viewer in the virtual world who is voting. So if you could just announce the vote, whether it's unanimous, and if there are any no votes, announce who the no votes are coming from.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna ask who is in favor and who, yeah, and aye. All of us unanimously. Who's opposed? I've not seen anyone, so. All right. No absentee either, so thank you. So is the vote unanimously passed for 12.01. Right, move to 13.01, discussion and action to receive and adopt second reading of proposed amendments to board bylaw 9270E, a resolution number 2020-2021-30, adopting a conflict of interest code and board bylaw 9270E, B, conflict of interest code, designate positions, disclosure category. Mr. Chris Chu, Associate Superintendent of Business.
Thank you. This is a second reading to the board policy, the board bylaw policy that staff has brought back to the board for consideration.
All right, so I need the moving, proven, okay. All right, all in favor of all vote?
The student board.
Student governing board, Bruce Nguyen. Okay.
I approve.
Thank you, Bruce. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I've not seen none. Any absence? None. Thank you. Yeah, the vote unanimously for 13.01. Thank you. Now we move to 15, facility bond operational item, board discussion and action.
Move for approval, Madam President.
15.01 moved by Board Herrera and second by Board Member Doe. That's the presentation. You want to get through the presentation? Well, we can vote and my presentation after that, or the presentation will go after, we vote.
Personally, the information is complete, and I have a trust in the process, because it's so site-based.
All right.
So I don't have questions unless there's something that the administration believes needs to be highlighted for the.
I don't know that everyone goes through the board items like we do, so it might be a good opportunity for the community to see the presentation as well, and also honor those who prepared to, present.
All right. So the presentation will be from Bond Department, Mr. Julio Lucas.
Good evening, Julio Lucas, Senior Manager of the Bond Program, and I'm very happy to be here tonight because it is the last step in the process that we've identified in slide 2 as initiation. And we've met with school sites, their school site council, school leadership, and went through a process that has taken us to where we are today. And what's going to happen next is each school site leader will be representing their site and speak to the goals of each site. And with that said, and keeping it moving here, I'd like to move on to this next slide. And capital construction projects for Piedmont Hills, Foothill, Mount Pleasant, Yerba Buena, and Oak Grove High Schools are being presented to the board for discussion and approval of the projects. And with that said, I'd like to start with Piedmont Hills and Principal Jenny Davis.
Good evening again. So this, of course, is Piedmont Hills. You see the blue dot on the screen. That is where our proposed project will be built. Oh, that is actually right outside my window of my office. It is in front of our L building, our theater, and where it's our senior Glen, what we call the senior Glen. And so it's right at the front of our campus, in the middle, in between the administration building and the art building. That big, that's Piedmont Road.
I am geographically challenged.
That's okay.
And so thank you.
Yeah, nope.
Jenny, a couple years ago when I was out on your site, you know, kind of
Yes.
on a listening campaign, is this the project? They
This
were
is the
asking for?
project.
Okay, thank goodness. Okay.
My site is very excited about this project.
Yeah, I'm handing it off.
So we have about $17.8 million available for this project. It's coming from Measure E, Measure I, and the Measure Z allocation. And our project, of course, is our performing arts classroom, which, as you know, Piedmont Hills really is very excited about.
And then this one also includes a slight refresh of the existing classrooms of the building.
Yes, so our existing G building, which is where our performing arts classrooms it currently exists, and it is by far the oldest building on the campus, will be refreshed and repurposed. Exactly, exactly. Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Thank you.
Question.
Hello, my name is Noemi Ramirez, Covarrubias Ramirez, and I am the principal of Foothill High School. Thank you for having me here. And so I'd like to talk to you about Foothill High School, and we had an opportunity, facilities did a beautiful study, and you have the facility master plan, and there's two buildings that beg for renovation, and one of them is the G building that you have next to our futsal field. And school site council kind of looked at the two areas, and that was the one that was cited that would have the biggest benefit for the continuing well beyond when I retire. And so the G building's gonna be chosen. You're gonna see that at Foothill, we have about $4.5 million, and that's a huge amount to do a beautiful renovation. And so our campus and our community decided that we want to continue the equity practices that the board has solidified, that the superintendent has talked about, and we want a kitchen. We want our kids to have fresher food. And yes, we do get good quality food right now, but we want the freshness of having it made on our site. And so that's what they voted for in the G building, putting a kitchen there, in addition to maybe other refreshers, but that's the main goal in order to ensure the equity. And as our kids come to campus, they get the beautifulness that every other student gets on our East Side campus. So that's what we're hoping that you'll support today. So thank you.
Can I just say that's so awesome to see come to fruition? I remember when I just joined the board and I was visiting all the sites, hearing the students talk, one of their biggest pieces of feedback was we want to be able to heat up our food here, to get our food done here. We love it. We have a nice area to eat, but the food is not made here. So I'm really happy to see it come to fruition. That's exciting.
Board Member Chavez.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see your school remodel and with the modernization of Building G. I'm really impressed by this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for me? No, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Tom Quinn. He's our senior project manager in East Side Union High School District. He's speaking on behalf of Principal David Brown from Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Mr. Brown is unable to be here. He's at his daughter's graduation from Howard in Washington, D.C. So it's a big day for him. But Mount Pleasant High School, this plan was developed about 4 years ago. And they have, with their Measure Z allocation, decided to devote the money to build a new food service servery and kitchen for their students. Their current facility is very old, located near their gymnasium. And they, again, similar to what Ms. Ramirez mentioned, wanted to create a more modern dining experience for their students.
So it's just, give them an idea of this is the.
That's the current library or student center in the middle of the quad. To the left of that is the admin building. And then to the right of that, to the right where the blue dot is where the new food service is going to be. Further to the right is their gymnasium.
So the food service, like in cafeteria, as well as, it's going to be like a student union.
It probably will not be a student union in the typical fashion that we're used to the student union at Yerba Buena or what we're building at Evergreen Valley High School. It will be more of kitchen and then a indoor space for students to dine in.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Otherwise, student gonna eat outside and it's rain. And
Correct, correct. And you're gonna notice a trend with the next several projects coming up. But their overall allocation is $18.4 million. And hopefully we can get a fabulous outcome for them.
Awesome.
Thank you. If I can introduce Ms. Mary Pollitt for Yerba Buena High School.
Thank you. My name is Mary Pollitt, principal at Yerba Buena High School. So us too, we have the theater. Probably most of you know Yerba Buena High School theater is right next to the gym near the student parking lot. This is one of the oldest building belonging to the original structure. So the building is about a couple years older than I am. And so with the measure of Z bond, hopefully that we have opportunity to remodel the building and have more classroom. Right now, it's only the theater and performing arts in there. So hopefully with the money available, we can have more classroom for visual arts to be able to squeeze into the space. Thank you for your support.
Sorry. I do want to point out that if you recall, the board did give an advancement to Yerba Buena to finish their student union. And so this allocation is minus the 4 million that was advanced. So they are now paid back.
Okay, great.
This is exciting. I'm excited to see what it looks like. I remember I learned a dance move or two in that theater as a high school student. So I'm excited to see what the outcome looks like. Not my forte.
Absolutely, and I know that if the theater will be rebuilt, and I know that a lot of community member, in East Side really love to see that building as well as like the student union at YB. So thank you for your presentation, Ms. Mary Pollitt.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Brazil will be next.
Hello.
Oh, thank
Good to
you,
see
everyone. It's so nice to see you. So, I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be talking about our K building, which currently houses it has a classroom that is used for PE. It's our wrestling room, which we kind of use as a large gathering space for staff meetings and stuff like that. And then also our former staff lounge and kitchen. And it's really just a whole bunch of little stuff put together. And so the idea is really to make it one big usable space. The nice thing is it's located, if you've been to our campus, when you come into the student parking lot, it is the building that is right there that will greet you. It is right adjacent to a quad that we just had modernized and was featured with Piedmont Hills' architecture and got an award for that. It's also right adjacent to our theater that was recently remodeled. So it's in a really nice space, easy to access for everybody. It'll be a great place for staff meetings, for parent meetings, and any kind of things activities we have going on when we have multiple functions. One thing that's really nice about this, I shouldn't say it's nice, but when we had a fire last year on our campus, we had a space there that when it became modernized, it enabled us to move our wrestling program over there. And so it really is opening up an opportunity for us to have indoor eating. And as everybody else has said, it's something that we desperately want. If you've been to our campus, there are very few covered areas. You have to really either in the rainy season, you have to hover up close to the buildings or get to one of the two overhang areas. With the completion of our student center, and I know 3 of you have visited our student center before we shut down, it's packed up there. And it went from being a space with maybe 10 or 15 people at lunch to in the spring and fall, about 150 to 180. And in the winter, I looked up because we log each day, 337 students were up there when it's raining because there's no place. So the idea, our students are so excited. We first talked about this idea about 4 years ago and then kind of got put off because we had other construction going on. So when they heard that this is happening, like actually a reality that it's going to happen, they're thrilled. So hopefully we're good to go. All right.
Awesome.
Thank
So the
you.
kitchen will be also inside, for the, for the
Oh,
student.
absolutely. Yeah, they are so excited about the idea of not having soggy fries because they're wrapped up in plastic and, so yeah, they're really excited about the change in the way the food will be presented. So, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you show us from the picture of the Oak Grove, where is the wellness center? I'm kind of curious.
No, that's perfect. I had my hand up last time and I'm like, okay, last week when people were talking about it. So our wellness center, okay, now I'm back. Okay, over here, the ROTC building.
People who are listening on.
Sorry, I can't, sorry, yes. Okay, so the wellness center is here. It was our former ROTC building. And so what ended up happening with our social service, social worker and her interns, they were actually housed in the portables before we had a charter school come on campus. So they went from a bank of about 8 to 10 portables down to a few small offices and then whatever open classrooms we had. And so when they have interns, they really are juggling, okay, you go over to the S building, you go over here, and it was really hard. So being able to put them in just one cohesive area, and also being able to move our ED social worker in there, which is really close to the ED classrooms in the program, it's going to be nice to have a one spot for them. So it is in the corner, but it's a nice area and it's right by a lot of the services, and it's easy access for driving up, parking, all of that kind of stuff too, if we have any issues that are going on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Anything else?
The last slide is questions, but I'd really like to thank everyone on the board for their support and trust in the bond program. And thank you, Mr. Herrera, especially for your comments. I value that trust enormously. So thank you.
We want to commend your group, your bond department that, be looking to all of this accomplishment, from student union to kitchen to remodel those art building. Or, this is really speak well for your department, and really appreciate all of your hard work, and your staff have done such a good job.
Yeah, I work with amazing people that are very dedicated, very dedicated. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So I moved approval, and who seconded?
Patty.
I did.
Oh, no,
Brian.
board member. Let's ask the student board, the governor board. Bruce, how do you vote?
I approve.
Awesome. So we have move by board member Herrera, second by board member Doe. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Any abstain? No. The board vote unanimously for item 15.01. Thank you. Now 15.02, presentation, discussion, and action to approve the Yobabuna Ball Field Improvement Project. Mr. Chris Giu, Associate Superintendent of Business Services, and Julio Lucas, Senior Manager of the Bond Program, Tom Hepwin, Senior Project Manager, and Mary Paulette, YB High School Principal.
Thank you again. We have a quick presentation again tonight. I'll introduce again Julio Lucas, Tom Nguyen, and Mary Paulette to share with you the plan for the ball fields at Yerba Buena.
Thank you, Tom Nguyen, Senior Project Manager. So we went through the same process with measures of the allocation, and in the previous presentation with Yerba Buena High School on the second slide, it showed an allocation of $3.5 million that was listed as unallocated. Well, that unallocated allocation is going to be devoted to remedying the deficient ball fields at Yerba Buena High School. And so the school site went through a similar process with the school site council and determined that that $3.5 million would be set aside to remediate the ball fields. As you can see, Yerba Buena is surrounded on 3 sides by Coyote Creek. The real estate of the ball fields is very limited, and you'll see this in the next 2 slides or so. And over the past 45 years of constant use and overlapping use because of the limited spaces, it has caused deterioration on these fields. And so we're proposing a permanent solution to reconcile this deficiency and inequity. And what we're proposing is a project of $9.5 million, and 3.5 of which comes from the Yerba Buena Measure Z allocation. That's the total project price. This is the financial breakdown of sources for this project. As you can see, 3.5 from Yerba Buena, leaving their balance in their Measure C allocation to 0, and then 4 other sources of budgetary items, to total $9.5 million. Get to the next slide.
I would just highlight that from the board discretionary, the 650,000 is about the average cost that the board approved to standardize the softball and baseball fields across the district. Yerba Buena did not receive any of that money at that time, and so that's where that figure came from.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
So how do we get to this point? We did a ball field study of all 11 high schools in our district, and just chose 3 surrounding neighboring schools, sister schools. And as you can see, the sheer size and availability of the ball fields for Yerba Buena is vastly inferior to the available space that its sister school has. And so because of this, and all the sports teams, the PE classes, and the various programs have to consolidate and use such a limited space, that there isn't recovery time for this space or this field to really regenerate itself, and it causes greater wear and tear. You have so many more entities using it in such a small space that it causes more rapid deterioration. And so the permanent solution to reconcile this deficient space is we're proposing a all artificial turf surface for softball, baseball, interlaid with soccer for Yerba Buena High School. This artificial surface will stand up to the greater level of use because of the overlapping use, and it will last 30, 40 years for that high school. Questions?
How does it work? How does it work with the markings?
So the lines will exist, and what studies have shown is when the players are on the field itself, they don't really notice the lines. We see the lines because of the aerial view, but the lines exist in the same way that on all of our football turfs, the lines are marked for both football and soccer, but it doesn't get into the way of the players' participation when they're actually playing that sport. We see it clearly because we have an aerial view.
It's more to show that there's actual space to allow for practice to happen because they're opposite seasons, right? Soccer's in the winter time, not opposite seasons, but soccer's in the winter time and baseball in the spring.
Any audible comments? If not, then I can move for this item 15.02. Who can?
Second.
All
Me
right.
too, I yield to.
Second by Board Member Cortese. Student Governing Board, Bruce Quinn, how do you vote?
I approve.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The board vote unanimously for item 15.02. Thank you,
Thank you
Senior
very much.
Project Manager Tom Wynn.
Thank you.
And all the staff have been working on this item. All right, so now we move to consent calendar 16 to 20.
Move for approval of consent calendar.
Second.
All right, Student Governing Board, Bruce Nguyen, how do you vote?
I approve.
All in the favors? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Any abstain? No. The vote unanimously for consent calendar 16.20. Item 21. All right, no written report recommendation. All right, so we move to 22, future agenda items. Opportunity for board trustee to request item for future agendas. Anyone has? No? All right, if none, then we, okay, move to 23.01. Let me ask the board member on my left hand side, start with board member Lorena Chavez on any report from board audit committee and Santa Clara County School Board Association, or any other comments?
No, so in terms of audit committee, we will be having a meeting on the 13th. So we'll have a report then. So more action coming soon, but otherwise, no.
Okay, thank you. Board member Chavez. How about board member Doe?
A lot of comment on this section today, which is highly unusual for me, as you remember. So I have an absolute great pleasure of visiting Andrew Hill High School along with Silver Creek. And I just want to do a shout out to Principal Jose Hernandez along with Kelly Gallagher for showing me the campus. But there were so much things at Silver Creek. I had such an amazing time. I met with, I believe, 11 different teachers and so many students. So I do want to highlight a couple of things. One is, did you know that we have at Silver Creek have the only Japanese language program in the districts, and only 1 out of 3 in the counties that teach Japanese? And one of the class that I went to was the math teacher by Ms. Nguyen, I believe. And she had 12 students in the class. That was like the most packed of all the schools that I visited so far, 12 students in one single class. And they're all very excited about being there. I mean, when I come in, they was giving me a thumbs up at how much they enjoy being coming in for 90 minutes. So I was so excited for that. One of the things that I recognized, and I saw, one thing I saw was a QR code as a sign in at Silver Creek. So student coming in, instead of having a human being sitting there and signing them in and check them off when they come and go, they have a sign in the QR code. They just take their phone and they sign in automatic from that. And that was designed and invented by one of our students at Silver Creek. And that's impressive. Now, that's not the last of that is not the most impressive thing. I get one of these amazing yearbooks there at Silver Creek. And what makes this special, was this particular design that you're seeing here is not by some professional company, but by 2 of our own students. Now, I'm going to mispronounce their name, but I'm going to try it anyway, because I do want to shout out to these amazing students. I'm going to feel really bad for mispronouncing their name, but I will. Let me see if I can pull this up. All right. So I'm going to try this. Mata Shanishenka and Kayan Yafam. These 2 kids designed this award winnings, and the list of what they have won, by the way, was like the who's and of every single, the Children's Education Association of Northern California, where they won 9 first place, 8 second place, and Columbia Scholastic Press Associations. This yearbooks have won, the Galleon have won, I'm gonna read this. 1 first place, 2 second place, 2 third place, and 5 certificate of merit. This is an award winning and designed by our own students and not some multi-million-dollar company outside. And I have, want to make you a little jealous a little bit. I got the autograph from the students. So when she become famous for being a great designer, this is one of her first work in high school. So I want to shout out to these students and these amazing, and I have absolutely shout out to the advisor, Miss Erica King. She's our English teacher at Silver Creek, but she's also the advisor. And so I know I sent some of you some pictures, and I'd love to be able, can I share that, Chris? Yeah. All right, I'm gonna share that if you don't mind, and appreciate your patience. Share my screen. Host disabled because of screen sharing, so.
Omar, can you please make that adjustment for Trustee Doe?
I also emailed to you, Chris, if you yes. Oh, 20 minutes ago. So these pictures are taken by Lyra Hu, one of the staff that was accompanying along with Ms. Gallagher and I, principal. This is I believe this is the economic teachers, and he was very excited about his students in his class coming back. It goes to second pictures. This is the QR code that I'm referring to. When you walk in, you take a picture of that, you scan, you are now registered in. What a brilliant idea from our students. And our third pictures is this. This is a classroom with 12 students who's actually enjoying coming back and excited about coming back, doing math homework. Can you believe that? Doing math and get excited about it. So I just want to thank Ms. Nguyen and all these wonderful teachers for allowing me to come back, to come to their classroom and talk to them. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Wow. I'm very impressed about our students, and also the board member Joe took the time to visit one of the schools. All right, so let's move to my right hand side, board member Patty Cotisi.
Tough act to follow. I'm just glad to be back, in person. This feels like progress. That's all I got.
All right, board member Vice President Manuel Herrera.
I just want to acknowledge and thank, and I believe the whole board shares this sentiment, to acknowledge and thank our food services staff that prepared a special meal for the board and for the administration. And I found it so yummy and delicious and so varied, which is what I had asked for. Give us a sampling, of what others are getting to enjoy. So thank you, food services staff.
I know. I also want to echo Board Vice President Herrera that I really enjoyed the food from Julie Kaspringer staff, and had done such a wonderful job. And it's the first time I tried pozole, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, pozole. I
Very
really enjoy it.
flavorful.
So
Yes.
that's really good. It's like a homemade to me. And so I will ask, maybe next board meeting we will have pho. So we want to try out this next time because we're gonna copy the Mr. Tom Nguyen that has done the first time at the YB High School. So if anything is wrong, hopefully Tom Nguyen gonna come back. So don't mention my name. But I really appreciate that, and I said that I'm really exciting to go back. Be in person for the meeting, and I really appreciate all my board colleagues, as well all of this administrator staff. You've done such a good job, and I cannot say that, in the time that we've been out for student for distance learning, now we are going back and much more have more energy and coming back. Despite from last month. But for this month, I think I have much more energy. And I attend a couple meetings like Hoffman Award. And I know that some of our school have been received Hoffman's Award a couple years ago. And I'm still continue to support, the student as well our staff. And so I'm gonna give it to board member Chavez. Would like to say a few words, right?
Sorry, you got me off guard at the first one. Next time you should start that way. But I just want to reiterate, Tom, I think you just got called out for cooking. So I want that to be on record. Next meeting, you're welcome. But I really, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. And so I want to say thank you to all of our teachers. You are at the heart of this institution, of our community. And there are no words to show our gratitude and our appreciation for everything you do for our children. So thank you very much, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Chavez, to remind us that, this week will be Teacher Appreciation Week. And I want to echo all of this hard work from our teachers to support our students, not just only the regular time, but also during the pandemic. Now, let me ask the Bruce Nguyen, Student Governance Board Representative. Would you like to have any comments?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have comments about, this month in general. It's a really interesting month for students. There are AP exams coming up. There are finals coming up. There's a lot of other good things as well. I just want to acknowledge that students are always working hard and always being actively engaged in their communities as well at the same time. And we have to continue raising awareness on different issues. And with everything going on at school, there's also community things. I've said before about the anti-Asian incidents that have been going on, and they are still going on. In San Francisco, just recently, 2 Asian women were attacked. And also, an Asian man and his child were also assaulted in San Francisco. And this is all is happening in just that city, in New York City. 4 attacks have occurred just last Saturday and Sunday. And I feel like it's growing exponentially. This is something that alarms me, it alarms students, it alarms their families. And just to have that constantly in our minds is, it really disheartening. So I just wanted to just put that out there and, work together as a community in order to solve a lot of these issues that have been going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for your comments. I also want to appreciate Mary Gillen has provided the signed copy of the resolution of honoring the former Republic of Vietnam flag. The community spoke last board meeting have been requested, and I really want to say that we are very proud because this is the first resolution of the district in the whole United States. And now the school from Australia, they had an incident and they want to see our resolution so they can adopt it in Australia. So ours been spread all, not just only United States, but all the way to Australia, to another country. So I'm really proud of our work. So thank you for all of the staff have done, especially Superintendent Fung has been working with me very closely for this resolution, and all of our board colleagues have been approving. So really appreciate that. All right, so the next item will be Chris Fung, Superintendent. You have any comments? 23.03.
Yeah, we know that this pandemic has wiped out so many traditions and rituals for families and communities and our various cultures. And here in Eastside, we've always recognized Employee Appreciation Week, because the last thing we would want to do is put competition between one classification and another in terms of what type of gift or what type of recognition. So, but this is our second year in a row that we've not been able to recognize our employees in person with their service pins, with, we usually bring cake and punch and coffee to the school sites. We usually recognize our employees of the year, our retirees. That's been wiped out because of the pandemic. And so, in recognition of Teacher of the Week, Employee or Teacher Appreciation Week, this is really about our employees and recognizing them. And as I said in my email to them, they are all our true heroes in our community because they've put up through so much of this pandemic, but yet have been there for our community, whether it's providing lunches, or it's working with our students that need to be on campus, that need that support, if it's making home visits to bring supplies to them. I just very appreciative of our community and our staff reaching out and supporting the Eastside community. So thank you to everyone and happy Appreciation Employee Week to everyone.
Thank you, Superintendent Fung. Board meeting evaluation. I don't know anyone will have anything to say about board meeting evaluation, but I think that we spend a bit more time to review and listen to our principal for the presentation, even though for the bond project, we can understand and really realize that how much work behind the scene for all of the staff, all of the employee have been worked to support for all of those projects. So even though we spend a bit more time, but it's worth it. So that's my comments. All right, so Okay, now 24.01, legal counsel, Rogelio?
Yes, closed session item 2.04. Motion by member Lay, second by member Cortese.
The board unanimously approved the appointment and employment of Honey Gubin as James Lick High School principal. There are no further actions to report.
Awesome, thank you, General Counsel Rogelio Ruz. All right, 25.01, I can use my gavel and say adjourn.